Hey guys and welcome to my channel. Today we are doing, what if Asta was in My Hero Academia? Asta Kurosaki was said to be quirkless like his friend, Izuku Midoriya, but that didn't stop him from trying to be the first quirkless hero. But once the two enter UA, everyone, including Asta himself, will learn that he does have a quirk, a power that's equally as powerful, but just as mysterious as One for All. Izuku x Ochako and Asta x Harem. With that out of the way, let's begin this what if. Honestly, Asta. Why do you always have to be so reckless? Asta chuckled nervously while wincing and hissing at the medicine his stepfather was applying to his bruises as soon as he ran straight home. I'm really sorry for lying to you and getting you worried, Pops. I just had to help him. He's my friend, after all. Leopold sighs at his stepson's response. He already knew what he has done since he discovered it all on TV after dinner was finished cooking. Part of him felt proud that he was doing the right thing, but another part of him just wanted him to be patient for the UA entrance exams without getting into fights with villains. Asta, I understand why you did it, and I'm sure you're fully aware of the dangers. But save it for after you get into UA and graduate from there. Understand? Yes sir, Asta answers with a nod. After finishing up, Leopold applied the necessary bandages for his stepson. After he did so, Asta puts on a spare shirt he collected from his room before his stepfather brought an aid kit to patch him up a little. After getting settled, Leopold coughs into his hand and tells Asta how he learned about his heroic actions. By the way, before you got home, you were on TV. Eh? Asta did a double take before the words repeated in his head. Upon realization, he shrieks in bewilderment. Wait. Are you sorry? Why yes, his stepfather confirms after covering his ears. In fact, it was that very news report that I saw what you were really up to. Asta's face turns red in embarrassment back how stern his father sounded. However, despite some people still in disbelief that a quirkless person was able to tango with a villain, it seems that you've sparked some inspire some of the people who witnessed your deeds. Asta gasps at this reveal. I have? Indeed, Leopold replies, seeing the shock written all over his stepson's face. In fact, debates have reopened on if quirkless people should be allowed to be heroes or not, and there's still people who disagree. After what they've got on tape, there's been a small increase in the belief that they should be given a chance to be heroes. Asta's surprise didn't go away. He did not expect a rise in the belief that quirkless people can still be heroes given the right equipment and training. Granted, the belief wasn't but it was something. His eyes shift towards his feet and a small smile formed from his lips, glad that he was not only able to do something right but to inspire a belief that they can be heroic. Crazy. Don't think that this revelation will make me forget about how reckless you were, young man. Asta chuckles sheepishly with horizontal eyes while scratching the back of his head. Now, it's time for us to eat. We don't want our food to be cold. Asta blinks at his stepfather twice before grinning and nodding. Yes sir. And with that, the Kurosakis make their way towards the kitchen to enjoy the meal cooked by Leopold. As they did, Asta would tell his father about how he intends to train for T-Hero course. 2 days pass. And today, Asta was running his way towards the destination All Might gave him with 4 cases of freshwater bottles on his back. After getting the okay from high stepfather to train there every day, though he slightly hesitated with the whole 6 a.m. schedule, especially on school days, the gray-blonde boy makes haste towards the site that Might has set up for him and Izuku to get stronger, the Takoba Municipal Beach Park. Alrighty, Izuku and I only have 10 months to develop the strength we need to partake in the UA entrance exams. Asta picks up his speed as he narrows his eyes with a grin. We've got this, Izuku. After 6 more minutes of sprinting with the water bottles on his back, Asta finally made it to the beach park. Once he stopped in place, Asta noticed something that he did not see. Asta and his stepfather never went to Takoba before, so to say that he had expectations of something beautiful would be one way to put it. Damn. Asta says as he witnesses the graffiti all over the sign that tells its location and the nearby trash that's far from it. How the heck did it get into such a state? After shaking his head in disappointment at what happened to the park, Asta pushed forward to locate All Might and Izuku. As he was walking around, his face cringes at the sight of the garbage piled up all over the beach. There were some rusted soda cans, broken TVs, torn up tires, pretty much that you would expect to see at a dump. Geez, this makes All Might's choice of a training ground much more strange than exciting. Asta continued his search for All Might and Izuku until he could hear some grunting afar. Oh. That must be them. Come on, All Might. You're 274 kilos alone. Nah, I've just lost some weight. I'm just 255 kilos, in my buff form, anyway. The gray blonde boy follows the source of the dialogue until his eyes finally lay upon his green-haired friend, who appears to be pulling a fridge with a bunch of rope tied onto TH, and from the looks of it, Izuku can't seem to make it budge a single inch. Asta then scans the fridge that he's pulling, and at the top corners of his eyes, he saw All Might in his heroic glory sitting on top of it while monitoring Izuku's progress. Izuku continued to pull and pull on the rope in his frail attempt to get the fridge moving. But with one more tug, his right eye caught the sight of a familiar person and he looks see his friend with the cases of water bottles on his back. Hey Asta. Just as he said his name, Izuku falls flat on his face, prompting Asta to run over to him and see if he's okay. Ah. Young Kurosaki, you've arrived. After helping Izuku sit up properly on the sand, Asta looks over to All Might and nods. Morning, All Might. Asta says before pointing at the 4 cases. I made sure to bring the refreshments like you asked. Very good, lad. Very good. As Asta was about to get ready for his training, Izuku looks at his favorite hero and holds a finger up in the air. All Might? Remind me again why I'm dragging this garbage across the street. All Might releases a hearty laugh while taking out his phone and snapping a few photos of the green-haired boy. That's because you're an ill-suited vessel. After watching his friend burst into tears at the symbol of peace's answer, Asta growls at All Might while pointing an angry finger at him. What the heck, All Might? You just said that he was worthy of your quirk 2 days ago. His body. I meant his body, the hero corrects himself before dropping down from the fridge, drawing a confused look from the boys. You see, boys, one for all binds the peace strength of many people into one. If your limp noodle body were to inherit my power without the proper training, young Midoriya, your limbs would pop right off like Legos. Izuku screams as he pictured his body being torn apart like that while Asta shivered with white eyes. After calming down, Izuku scans the trash with his eyes. So, I'm here to train my body by hauling trash? Correct. All Might replies with a thumbs up, making Asta's brows raise. But that's not all. I did some research yesterday. This beach, or at least this one section, has been a dump for years. Asta gasps at the revelation while Izuku nods in understanding. Yeah. Something about the currents. Lots of stuff drifts ashore. And people also dump their garbage here, even though they shouldn't. Damn. So that's why I saw the beach as it is when I got here. And it's been going on like this for a while? Izuku nods at his friend in confirmation. All Might places a hand on the fridge. Although he's still grinning like a hero, Asta could sense disappointment from how All Might rubbed the object. I'm sure one of you boys know this. But the young heroes today only want fame and glory. Asta nods in agreement. But being a hero is more than just saving the innocent. I all about volunteer work, no matter how unglamorous. Never forget that, boys. Then, with his quirk, All Might slams his hand onto the ground, causing some of the garbage to crush and blast it away from him. Let's bring back this beautiful ocean view. That is your first step on your path to becoming a hero, young Midoriya. Izuku's eyes shimmer at his favorite hero's words. Cleaning all of this up is my first step? All Might nods before walking closer to the boys. Young Midoriya, you want to go to UA, yes? Izuku nods strongly. Why yes, he then looks down at his hand and gently balls it into a fist with a smile. Because you went to UA, All Might, if I can, I definitely want to go there. Geez, you're a blind fanboy. All Might says before setting his sights on Asta, making him stand in attention. And I assume that's where you want to go, too? That's right. Asta confirms with a strong voice. All Might turns around, making Asta tilt his head at him. The hero then turns his head, giving him what seems to be a testing gaze. According to most people, it's not possible for someone who's quirkless to get into a hero school. Asta squints when he paused for a moment. And that's mostly because Udata course is the toughest there is. Asta's eyes widen at his next statement. So tell me, young Kurosaki, are you sure you're up for becoming the first quirkless hero at UA? With his hands clenched into fists, Asta booms his answer. No matter what challenges are thrown at me, I will defeat them, because I'll never give up. That's my quirk. All Might takes a step back at his response while Izuku smiled at his friend. Just like the sludge villain incident 2 days ago, Asta wasn't going to back down anytime soon. That was the attitude All Might loved to see. A good answer, young Kurosaki. Izuku nods in agreement before setting his eyes on his own hands. We've got 10 months before the entrance exam. I've got to mold my body into a suitable vessel by then. That's what this is for. All Might says as he presents a stack of papers to Izuku. Behold, my self-designed pass-the-test American dream plan. This training regimen will help clean up the garbage on the beach and then some. You can chart your entire lifestyle with this. Izuku took the training regimen from All Might to have a look. Upon reading it, he was amazed by how much he's set up so he can become healthy and strong. Even Asta was impressed with it when he got a look at it himself. You even planned how much sleep I get. All Might walks over to Izuku and gives him a gentle pat on the back. To be frank, this will be super tough. Can you pull it off, young Midoriya? Well, yeah. Izuku replies with a strong nod and a determined look. I know I have to work way harder than anyone else, including Asta, to make it in UA. Asta chuckles with his friend and gently punches his shoulder. Work harder than me, Izuku? But of course, Izuku answers with a smirk. After all, you're not the only one who wants to get into the school. Ha ha ha. Then I look forward to how much progress you make in those 10 months. Asta holds out his fist towards Izuku. After looking at it for a few more seconds, Izuku makes eye contact with his friend and connects his fist with his, earning a chuckle from a "let's get through this training together, Izuku." Yeah, Izuku agrees with a firm nod. Let's do this. The boys then hear All Might laugh next to them and look at him to see him giving the boys a thumbs up. Now that's heroic spirit, my boys. Now then, let's begin. Young Kurosaki, you leave the trash work to young Midoriya so he can develop his body. But All Might, surely there's something I can do to help. Plus, I know I can make my body stronger than it is now. There will be villains stronger than that slimy bastard. Sorry, my boy, but this is important for young Midoriya. Asta looked disappointed. However, the very least I can do is to allow you work out here with him and maybe use some garbage until young Midoriya needs to get rid of it. But other than that, stick to your own training regimen, as I'm sure what you've done to get the body build you have now is enough. Asta blinks at the number 1 hero before saluting to him with a determined grin. Yes, sir. And with that said, the 10 months of training have begun. And to say that it felt like hell, specifically to Izuku, is quite the understatement. Izuku's first task is to get a broken 4-row locker set to the entrance of the park and to load it into the truck. And when Izuku was taking care of that and the other garbage, I made it perfectly clear that he needs to run and be quick because of how time can fly in such a situation. While he was doing his routine, Asta went ahead and used some of the heavier trash to create a makeshift workout station. With it, the gray-blonde boy got started on his own. All Might noticed Asta's setup from the corner of his eye and looked bewildered when he saw the boy lifting the heaviest tires he's found as makeshift weights. Ha! Smart kid. After a good amount of time, the boys' training was paused so that they can head off to their school. During their trip there, the boys would talk about the usual stuff before they have to part ways to go to their different classrooms. During the free times at school, Asta scribbled in his notebook on the workout times for both when he was on his own and when he's training at the beach park with Izuku, and when the other students walked by him doing so, some gave him weird stares and some rolled their eyes, still under the belief that quirkless heroes are an impossibility. However, there were a few students who looked at him with inspiration in their eyes and mentally cheered the boy on for his goals. Apparently, news of Asta's actions against the villain didn't go unnoticed by the students and teachers. And it sparked a few conversations between the students related to the incident. Asta's ears would always twitch whenever he heard some of the students whisper about what he did back then. He heard some say how suicidal he was, and some say that he was rather brave. Other times, he would hear an occasional giggle from a few of the girls. But Asta just ignored those murmurs and continued jotting stuff down in his notebook. While he was flattered by those who call him brave, he can't let the comments distract him doing what is important. And that was to make sure that he was strong enough and smart enough to pass UA's entrance exams. And he hopes to do so alongside his best friend, Izuku Midoriya. Once school was finished, Asta was jogging his way back to the beach while going over the notes he's written down for training. Okay, that should be everything necessary for the routine. Now to head back to the beach and resume my training with All Might and Izuku. Excuse me. Just as he was about to break into a run, Asta halted when he heard someone speak to him. Turning his head, he saw a girl who appears to be the same age as him with short bead blocking the view of her eyes. And judging by her outfit, she doesn't go to his junior high school. Can I help you? Asta asks politely, noticing her shy posture. I was wondering. Are you that boy on TV that was able to save 2 other boys from a villain made of sludge? Asta blinked at the girl in surprise. He knew that some people were aware of his previous actions based on the stares he was given, but he never expected a person to ask him. Yeah. He then adopts a bashful face as he proceeds to scratch the back of his head. Although, I really wasn't expecting my actions to make it on the news. I just did what I thought was the right thing to do. Nothing more, nothing less. From behind her bangs, the girl's cheeks turned light red as she fidgets with her fingers. Well, you see. I'm quirkless myself. Asta gains a surprised expression at the reveal. And I saw you do what you did on the news, and I just want to say, I'm cheering you, mister. Asta was taken back by the girl's words. You are? Yes. The girl answers. People are always saying that the quirkless can't accomplish anything heroic, but if you ask me, you proved them wrong. That's why I hope you continue what you're doing and become a hero. We need more people like you. Asta was blown away by this girl's support. When most people heard of his goals, they usually scoff at him and tell him to think realistically. But this girl told him that he should keep going. And she's quirkless too. Oh. Well. Thank you for your support. Asta booms with a thumbs up, making the girl blush at the gesture. I'll be sure to remember your kind words as I continue my path of becoming the first quirkless hero. Hey, I know you. You're that quirkless kid who's been able to hold his own against that villain. Asta and the girl turned their heads behind them and saw a gray-haired boy a year or 2 younger than them walking by with a smile. Recognizing the gray-blonde hair on the boy, spotted him. Yes, that's right, the girl confirms with a smile. This boy here is going to prove that being quirkless isn't a roadblock for being a hero. Whoa! That's cool! Asta was once again surprised by the boy's response. Not expecting that he too would have a positive reaction. Heck, I don't think my own quirk can measure to what he's capable of. Asta rose a brow at the boy. What about your quirk? Surely it does something useful for you. The boy laughs awkwardly while scratching his cheek. It isn't anything to be considered heroic. All I can do with it is radiate a good amount of steam off of my body. That's it. Asta puts a hand on his chin while taking in the information on the boy's quirk. After thinking about it long enough, he sets his eyes on the boy. Lad, have you thought about being a hero despite your quirk? The boy blinks at Asta's sudden question. He was hesitant for a moment. But he slowly nodded. Then you show experiment with it. I'm sure you can find some great use with your steam. Huh? The boy was shocked by what Asta said. Do you think so? Yes. You just need to see what else you can do with it as soon as you get home. The girl looked on in surprise at the gray blonde boy encouraging the boy to try what he can steam quirk. And if that's not enough right now, Asta pauses to pull back the sleeves of his uniform shirt and flex his arms. Make up for it in muscle. The boy gasps at how muscular Asta's arms were while the girl's blush turned darker at them. I assure you, there are plenty of quirk people who also fight physically. So if your quirk isn't enough to become heroic, then use your muscle to add on to your strength. The boy gasps at Asta's advice before looking down at his own hands. Wow. I never thought about that. Well, if you want to be a hero, you better start thinking about that. Asta then looks at the time on his phone before looking back at the boy and the girl. Anyway, I'd love to chat more, but I oughta be off right now. The boy starts to run towards his next destination. He takes a few more steps before turning back at them with a grin, a wink, and an up. I've got a hero course to prepare for. The girl and the boy watch Asta run off to do just that. Good luck, mister. The boy shouted to Asta while raising a fist. Fight on. The girl giggled at the steam quirk user and sets her eyes back onto the running Asta. She smiles at the gray blonde boy, hoping that he will be able to become a hero despite of a quirk. 5 months pass. Asta and Izuku continued to train their bodies to the best of their abilities so that they could partake in the UA entrance exams. But during those months, as do a lot more training on his own than in the beginning of it because of how much garbage Izuku was able to take care of so far. The green-haired boy isn't on the level of Strun Inherit 1 for all just yet, but he just got to the point where he could lift the heavier objects. They weren't as heavy as, let's say, a building and a truck, but they were heavy to test his current strength. And so, Asta just did his usual routine on the current month in his backyard. He would still train with Izuku and All Might once in a while at the beach, but since All Might would out to do other types of workouts, it was a rare occurrence. Right now, the gray blonde boy was wrapping up his routine with push-ups after he did the other workouts, some shadow boxing, and a parkour exercise that involved him jump wall, or since it's the backyard, a thick tree, and kicking afterwards. He got the hang of it, but it's far from perfect. 998. 999. 1000. Just as he finished doing this amount of push-ups, Asta flips over on his back and grabs a nearby water, and that's it for today. Asta unscrews the cap with a single slap of his hand and began to chug some of the hydrating liquid by squeezing the bottle. SS so cold, but it's worth. After getting himself relaxed with his beverage, Asta began to think about his friend, Izuku. Ever since those 5 months went by, he couldn't help but notice Izuku looking more tired and tired by each passing week. Every time he asked if he's okay, Izuku would insist fine and that he's just a little worn out from training. But the way Asta saw it, his condition didn't look like something he would consider to be a little. Either way, Asta always made sure to tell Izuku to not overdo it every day they walked to school together. Izuku acknowledged his advice, but as the days went by, Asta wondered actually taking it easy. The gray blonde boy sighs before taking another swig of water. He then looks up at the sky and furrows his brows. Izuku. I hope you're doing okay, bud. Please don't strain yourself and overdo it. Asta remembers doing the same thing when he was younger and starting out. It was very unpleasant, and he had to learn the hard way that he shouldn't rush his training. Asta. Dinner's ready. Asta's eyes widened when he heard his stepfather and got up from his spot. I'll be right there, Pops. 2 more months go by. On the afternoon of today, Asta decided to spend the last part of his training going on a run. With his black hoodie and gray running pants on, he began around the neighborhood. He started slow at first, but he picked up the pace shortly after. He thought about adding onto his run with some parkour, but because of how late in the afternoon it is, he decided to not do any for today. As he was running, his thoughts were once again on his friend. Izuku's weariness was becoming more evident to Asta as the two kept walking to school together. But despite haired boy's fatigue, he told him that he was making good progress and to not worry too much about him, the same usual sayings when Asta showed his concern. Asta's eyes remained narrowed as his mind kept lingering onto Izuku's condition. He finds it great that Izuku's pushing himself, but, again, if he overdoes it, it will end ugly. As he kept jogging, the corner of his eyes caught a familiar mess of blonde hair and looked to see a man wearing a coat. Is that All Might? Asta sprints faster towards him to get a closer look at the man in question. And sure enough, it was the same messy hair that's associated with the numb hero's skinny form. Mr. All Might jumped when he heard someone shout at him. Turning around, he sighed with a hand on his head when it was just the gray-blonde boy who noticed him. Oh, young Kurosaki. Hello, All Might greeted with a slight wave. Out on a run, I see. Asta nods in response before looking beside the hero. Izuku's not with you? All Might shakes his head. No, we just finished up training for the day. He then chuckles to himself while placing his hands in his coat pockets. Crazy kid. I even told him that overworking himself wasn't the plan, and yet he still persists. Asta blinks in surprise. You never intended for that to happen? Of course not. All Might confirms with some blood bursting out of his mouth, making Asta shiver at the sight. In my Pass the Test American Dream Plan, I designed it based young Midoriya needed to do with his body specifically to make it before the day of the UA entrance exams. Overdoing it is no good for him. That's exactly what I told him. All Might looks at Asta in surprise when he revealed that. Every day, whenever we walked together at school, I would always see my friend Dro Heck. He'd even walk a few steps with his eyes closed once before I had to shake him awake before he walked into either an open road or a telephone pole. All Might cringed at part. I kept telling him to not overdo it, but he kept assuring me that he's okay. And no offense to you, All Might, but it kinda made me feel like it was because of the training you gave to Izuku. All Might looked at Asta for a moment before shrugging with a sigh. No. I don't blame you for your accusation one bit. I am partially at fault for creating such schedules for young Midoriya. And because of that, I'm modifying the plan so that not he be strong enough to inherit my quirk, but so he won't have to overdo it ever again. Asta looked on at the symbol of peace with an amused expression. This just showed him how much the hero cared for Izuku's physical condition. Well, I'm glad you were able to take care of that part. During those times, I was always worried that Izuku would eventually pass out at any moment. Yeah, All Might adds before smirking at Asta. But you know, when I told young Midoriya about how overworking himself isn't okay, he still wouldn't back down. Asta blinked a few times but then sighed while shifting his eyes to the side. I figured he wouldn't. Being a hero is his ultimate dream, after all. All Might hums with a nod before continuing. And you know what he said when I told him about overworking himself? He said that he would never catch up if he hadn't worked harder than you or anyone else, that he want just like me. Asta's eyes widen at this revelation before All Might chuckles again. I tell you, he's got his eye on the far future. And when I heard such dumb zeal from him, it me of myself during my youth. All Might's eyes shift and I can't help but keep thinking that it's because of you, young Kurosaki. Asta does a double take before pointing at himself with beady pupils. Me? That's right. In fact, it was evident to me when he told that sludge villain off after he called you terrible things. And while I was training him, I would always hear him murmur name, followed by must do better and other phrases related to that. All Might laughs gently before continuing. And that's when I got the impression that he got his resolve that far. While I don't know your past with young Midoriya, I was able to figure out that you were, and still are, a great influence on the lad. Asta's expression stayed shocked as he processed what the number one hero has told him. After listening, his eyes soften and shift downwards. Wow. I had no idea I motivated him that much. I just told him that he could do it because I developed the necessary strength and body to do it. Heck, I still think that our free first started when I first discovered that he was quirkless after I saved him from some bullies. Asta paused at the last part, remembering who those bullies were before continuing. We got to know one another after we introduced ourselves to each other, and during our hangouts, which eventually lead to us talking about our favorite heroes, playing game, watching movies, and all that other fun stuff. I've learned why Izuku wanted to be a hero despite lacking a quirk. I'm sure you know the reason already, so I'll spare the extra tea when he told me all of that. I knew that he can do it, just like how I plan to do it myself. Asta pauses again, lifting a hand towards himself before balling it into a fist. His mind, body, and soul are perfect to be a hero. That's exactly why he's a good candidate for your quirk while I continue my path as the first quirkless hero. And if your condominium one day make access to your quirk impossible, then I'm sure my friend will be able to carry on your legacy. All Might took in what Asta said and was astonished for the boy to have so much trust in Izuku. And for it to all start with the discovery of another quirkless kid, he couldn't help it poetic. It made perfect sense to the number one hero that Asta's refusal to give up would be what would make Izuku not to quit either, even when he's overworked himself on training regimen. After breathing through his nose, All Might turns his head to Asta. Young Kurosaki? Yes, sir? Asta looked up towards the symbol of peace and saw that he was smiling at him with gentle eyes. You're a good kid. Asta was taken off guard by his sudden compliment before smiling and blushing with horizontal eyes. Oh, it's nothing. I'm just saying what I believe. All Might laughs with Asta before scratching the back of his head with a wider grin. Well, I better be off now. I got some stuff to take care of, one of which is modifying young Midoriya's plan. As for you, you better run along. Don't want to keep you off your training, after all. Yeah. You got it. Asta replies with a strong nod before turning around and running. See you later, All Might. All Might chuckles sheepishly while waving his hand goodbye to the gray blonde boy. Loud kid. Good thing no one else was around where we were. After sighing a breath, the hero keeps his stare on the sprinting Asta and narrows his eyes. Don't worry, young K, I'll make sure you get into that school. Just keep getting stronger and leave the rest to me. Suddenly, All Might's phone began to go off, making him jump when his ringtone played. He quickly grabs it from his pocket and answers it. Hello? Yes. After hearing everything the caller said, his eyes widen with some blood trickling from his mouth. Are you serious? He's. All Might listened carefully before his started forming into the widest smile possible before breathing from his nose in relief. Yes, I heard you loud and clear. I understand. Thank you. Goodbye. All Might hangs up his phone. After storing it back in his pocket, he looks back at the area where Asta was and saw that he was no longer there. Despite that, he grins at the dir he's facing while still being glad that he got the phone call he received. Have you picked out what you're gonna wear for the entrance exams? Asta? Yes, sir, Asta answers his stepfather as he held onto his hoodie and running pants while he still wore his junior high school uniform. Today was the day, exam day. Last night, Asta made sure to set his alarm clock as early as he could while at the same time getting a good night's sleep. And it worked out for H, was wide awake and ready to take on anything. After finishing his breakfast, consisting of bacon and eggs, Asta packs his hoodie and pants into his book bag and zips it up. After putting the bag on his back, he was ready to Asta, a moment of your time before you leave? Yes, sir? Asta turns his head around towards Leopold and sees his gentle smile on his lips. I just want you to know that no matter the outcome of the exams, I'll always be proud of you. Asta's eyes broaden at his father's words before giving him a smile back. Thanks, Pops. Not just for what you said, but for everything. The two hug each other for a moment before Leopold allowed Asta to turn back around and get his shoes on at the door. After placing his hand on the door, Asta flashes his fat thumbs up with closed eyes and a toothy smirk. I'll be off now. Good luck, son. Make history out there. The two nod at each other before Asta opens the door and leaves the house, closing the door behind him while doing so. After he left, Leopold looks at the family photos of him and Asta. Some pictures consist of him and the gray blonde roasting marshmallows and other father-son activities. Some Asta alone showing off his sketch of his hero costume and working out on a stable tree branch, and some show him and Izuku having a great time together. As he looked at the photos, Leopold's smile grew and looked back at the front door. You can do it, Asta. You've proved some people wrong during the sludge villain incident. I'm sure you can do the same at the entrance exams. After closing the door, Asta looks up towards the sky with his fist raised high. Alright, today is the day. I'm going to be giving it my all. Looking back forward to see where he's going, his eyes widen when he sees a familiar blonde man with his truck behind him. All Might? Asta exclaims, not expecting to see him today. Good morning, young Kurosaki, the #1 hero said humbly. I'm on my way to go see young Midoriya. Want a ride? Asta blinks twice at the hero's offer before shaking his head. Oh no, that's fine. I can run up there myself. Please, I insist. After all, you should save your strength for the UA entrance exams. Asta thinks about it for a while before deciding to nod. Well, if you put it like that, then I guess I'll accept your offer, then. Asta hops into the truck with all might and he began to drive to his next destination. During the ride, Asta looks over to All Might and asks him a question. So, how was Izuku doing after you modified your plan? He's doing swell, even though he'll sometimes still overdo it a little, All Might replies while keeping his eyes on the road. But today, he told me to meet him up on the beach, where we're going to meet him. Eh? You mean he went over there by himself? That's what it sounded like to me. Asta looks down towards his own legs with worry in his narrowed eyes. Damn it, Izuku. You better not have strained yourself today. The two have finally arrived on the beach. As they got out, All Might sighs a breath while Asta was more concerned about his friend. Alright, Izuku, where are you? I hope you haven't. Asta's thoughts were immediately cut off when he and All Might heard a familiar voice roaring at the top of his lungs. After searching for a few seconds, their eyes freeze when that it was Izuku Midoriya, standing on top of all the trash he's piled up and moved away from the beach, continuing to boom in triumph. Holy hell, Asta murmurs with his eyes still glued onto the howling Izuku. He actually did it. All Might drifts his stare from Izuku to the beach, and amazing does not begin to describe the sight he's seeing. Damn! Young Midoriya went beyond the assignment. Incredible! And there's not a speck of trash left. All Might's body shivers in astonishment as his eyes slowly go wider. You just in time and exceeded my expectations. Holy! Holy! He then bulges into his muscular heroic form with a wide, proud grin on his face. Holy crap baskets! Asta snickers at his best friend's accomplishment before it turned into a glad laugh. Way to go, Izuku! Izuku sluggishly turns his head left when he heard Asta shout at him. Ta! After he said his friend's name, Izuku began to feel woozier and started to fall off the rubble, making the gray blonde boy gasp. Oh crap! Izuku! Asta began to run so he can catch his friend, but All Might beats him to the punch. Well done, lad. You did great. Asta caught up with the symbol of peace and sees a smiling Izuku looking up at All Might. All Might. I did it. Izuku says before shifting his eyes towards Asta, prompting him to smirk back at the green-haired boy. Very astonishing, young Midoriya. All Might praises while helping him back to his feet with the assistance of Asta. You're a real entertainer, and a teen, no less. The hero out his phone and opens up a photo. Take a look here, my boy. Izuku slowly blinks at All Might's phone. What? What is it? Asta leans over to have a look himself and sees that it was Izuku in the picture, prompting him to raise an eyebrow. This is you 10 months ago, young Midoriya, All Might explains before putting his phone away and pointing at the green-haired kid. And look at you now. Excellent work, lad. Asta went ahead to look at Izuku's current physique and whistled at it. Damn, Izuku. That's quite the strong body you've developed. Good on ya, bud. Izuku chuckles before wiping some sweat off of his forehead while panting. Thanks. But it's not as good as your physique. Asta. Maybe not, but the path forward is ever so slightly clearer, young Midoriya. All Might exclaims with a humble laugh. But you're a true blue vessel now. Izuku releases another breath while lifting a hand towards himself. Feels like I cheated. Though. Oi. Don't say that. Asta scolds before giving him some pats on the shoulder. You've worked to the bone to get this strong. And don't get me started on how you've overworked yourself despite me telling you many times not to do that. Izuku chuckles again with tears streaming down his face. Even so. I got all this help from you, All Might. I've been blessed. Izuku shifts his eyes towards Asta before finishing. Twice. All Might believes that Asta is correct on what he said earlier. This is all because of Izuku's own efforts. There was no cheating involved at all. Now, you gotta quit being a crybaby. All Might says while patting the green-haired boy on the back. Anyway, time for your award ceremony, Izuku Midoriya. Izuku wipes away his tears before nodding and sniffling. As soon as he settled down, All Might plucked a strand of hair from his eyebrow, puzzling Asta as he saw him do that. You know what they say, there's a big difference between being born with that silver spoon and working your butt off to earn it. Take this to heart, young Midoriya. You veer power fair and square. Izuku looks forward and firm at his hero and gives him a strong nod with clenched fists. To the green-haired boy, it was like a twist right out of those comic books within his REA now. With a proud smile, he was going to make that leap. With a nod back, All Might presents the strand of hair to Izuku, who looked at it with curiosity. Now. Eat this. Izuku froze at the hero's sudden command while Asta stared at him with beady eyes and a tilted head. Ha! I said we've heard what you've said. Asta snaps. We want an explanation. Oh. All Might understood and went ahead. You see, young Midoriya, the only way for a successor to inherit One for All is to consume the DNA of the previous user. It really matter what it is you eat. As long as you get my DNA, the quirk is yours. Now hurry. Eat. Izuku screams while flailing his arms. This is not exactly how I thought this would go. Come on, young Midoriya. You must consume the hair. Quickly. Asta cringes at the sight of All Might telling Izuku to eat his hair just so he can acquire his quirk. Once Izuku resigned to this instruction, Asta forced one eye shut while the eye through its lids as it watches the green-haired boy painfully consume the strand. Well. At least we have some water so he can wash it down. Right? With 3 hours left until the entrance exams begin, All Might drove Izuku back to his apartment so he can take a quick shower and pack his bag with what he needs. As Suna entered the building, Asta went ahead and got out of All Might's truck so he can wait for his friend. Are you sure you don't want me to drive you to UA so you can at least be there early? Asta shakes his head while smiling. Nah. I prefer to get there with my friend with me. You go on ahead and do what you need to do, All Might. The number one hero blinks at the gray blonde boy before nodding at him. Very well, then. All Might opens his truck's door and enters the vehicle. After closing the door, he kept the window down so he can continue to speak to Asta. Oh yeah, one thing. About UA and their acceptance on the quirkless. Asta's face remains stern, knowing exactly where this is going. Let me guess, they're still unsure if I can be a hero because of my lack of a quirk? Well. Not quite. Asta rose a brow at that. In fact, I've been told by one of the higher-ups that after they've reviewed the footage of your battle against the sludge villain, they're considering allowing a quirkless person take the exam for the hero course. His smile widens. Starting with you, young Kurosaki. Really? Asta had to admit, he did not expect to hear that. But how do you know that? All Might chuckles while turning on the ignition. Keep this between us until it's learned by everyone else, lad. I'm gonna be a teacher at UA. What? Asta was about to ask more questions, but All Might already took off after telling him of his position in the hero school. Asta remained bewildered at the new information, but as played the reveal in loop a few times in his head, it left him wondering with a more baffled expression. Wait. Did he? Before he could finish his sentence, he heard the door to the apartment complex open, revealing Izuku in his school uniform with his backpack on. His face looked serious for a but as soon as his eyes laid on the gray blonde boy, it morphed into surprise. Oh. Asta. You're still here? Yep. Asta confirms with a toothy grin. I figured that your ride on the subway would be less boring if I stuck around, so here I am. Izuku blinks at his friend a few times before his lips break into a smile. That sounds good, Asta. Let's go. Way ahead of ya, bud. And with that said, the boys set off towards the subway station, as it's the fastest way towards UA while they can save the energy for the entrance exams. Minutes later, the boys have made it onto a train just in time with the few hours they have still available. They were now sat next to each other while waiting for the train to tack UA High School. Both are determined to pass the exams and hope that their training has paid off for them. As they continued to wait, Izuku decided to speak up to break the silence. Hey. Asta? The gray blonde boy turns his head towards Izuku. What's up? With pink cheeks of embarrassment, Izuku pokes his two fingers together and begins to talk. I just want to apologize to you about those earlier months. Eh? Asta's face wore confusion. What have you got to be sorry for? It's about how I acted towards you while I was overworking myself with the training. I kept telling you that I was fine and that it was no big deal. And because of my sluggy might have come off as rude. And for that, I want to say sorry. Asta's eyes broaden a little at Izuku's apology. Yes, he was a little rude when he kept telling him that he was okay, but it was never on the level of Katsuki's, or even hostile in Izuku, like I said before. You have nothing to apologize for. Huh? A question mark pops from Izuku's head. I was like that too once upon a time, back when it was revealed that I was quirkless. I would always overwork myself because of how obsessive I was to get strong as quickly possible. I was so concerned with being strong, I didn't pay attention to how straining it was. Whoa. Really? Really, Asta answers with a nod before lifting his head up to look at the ceiling of the train. And I tell ya, if it weren't for my pops, I would have continued to hurt mice that. He taught me that it was okay to go beyond my limits, but not to overdo it too much. And that's exactly what I did. Go beyond, but not too beyond to the point where I CA at all. Asta then looks back at Izuku. And I can assume that's what you did too, right? Go beyond your limits, but not too much? Izuku flinched at the question before slowly nodding. Yeah. I really wanted to be like All Might. And I guess I wanted to be like you as well. Asta laughs with his friend after he admitted the last part. Did I inspire you that much? Of course you did. Izuku insists. How could I not be after I first met you? With both your bold declaration on wanting to be the first quirkless hero, to your very strong physique was those, along with both your and All Might's words of encouragement after that sludge villain incident, that I decided that my path on being a hero has been set in stone. And is going to stop me from achieving my goal. Asta grins at his friend and pats him on the back with closed eyes. Well, good on ya, bud. That's exactly the attitude I expected from ya. You're gonna a great hero, Izuku. Asta opened his eyes so he can see again, and once he did, he saw that Izuku was sticking out his fist towards him. No. We will be great heroes, Asta. Asta gasps lightly at Izuku's declaration before snickering with him. He brings up his fist and connects it with Izuku's. Once they made contact, the boys smirk at each other, wit full of determination. We've got this, Izuku. Yeah. Now let's do this. Yeah, Asta agrees before they both finish with, "Let's become the greatest heroes together." And with that, the boys continue their wait on the train. And once it stops for UA, the boys will give it their all. Izuku, to succeed his idol hero, and Asta, to become the first quirkless hero. The UA High School Hero Course. It's a course designed to give students everything they need to become a pro hero. And according to most people, it is the toughest and most popular hero course in Japan, and 1 in 300 applicants is accepted. But that information didn't scare off the two boys that were aiming to become heroes at that school. If anything, it made both Asta and Izuku more motivated to do the best they can to be accepted. And after riding the subway train for 40 minutes, the boys have finally arrived at their destination. Although they had to run a little bit to get to UA itself, they were able to G-Few. "We made it!" Izuku exclaims while holding onto the straps of his backpack. "And right on time, too," Asta adds with a toothy grin while adjusting his headband. The boys then tilt their heads up to get a look at the building, and what they saw made Asta develop stars in his eyes while raising his fists in front of himself in excitement. Whoa! This place is huge and gorgeous. While Asta was stoked with the school building, Izuku's lips quivered nervously despite his eyes being narrowed. There was no time for me to test out the power All Might has granted me. Izuku then holds a hand to his mouth with a queasy expression, remembering exactly how he obtained one for all. "Hey, you doing okay, bud?" Asta asks him, noticing his uncomfortable expression. Why yeah. "I'm good," Izuku assures him before looking away with an embarrassed face. "I'm just remembering the hair he gave me." Asta understood what he meant and cringed with him. "Well, did it do something? Are you feeling anything right now?" Izuku shakes his head. "Not really, no. In fact, I still feel the same." "Move aside, Deku and Bakasta." Izuku jumped at the familiar tough voice while Asta zipped his head at the source. Izuku followed and saw a familiar blonde boy looking as grumpy as ever. "Kaken. Bakugo. Get out of my way or you're both dead," Katsuki growls. "Quirkless duo." As if on instinct, Izuku takes 2 steps back and flails his arms in front of himself. Hey. Morning, Kaken. Let's do our best." Much to the boys' surprise, Katsuki just brushes by Izuku, not bothering to scare one of them even further with his explosions. In fact, during their months of training, Izuku noticed that the ash blonde boy has stopped tormenting him. He still talks to him aggressively, but he hasn't gone as far as he has as he kept his eyes on him. Asta noticed Katsuki's face twitching a little when a few of the other students from different junior high schools started to talk about him quietly. Asked the ash blonde boy with the sludge villain incident. Ha! His attitude's still intact, but something is a tiny bit different about him. Can't quite put my finger on it, but I know it's there. Asta then looks over to Izuku and pats him on the shoulder, getting his attention. "You alright, bud?" "Oh. Why yeah," Izuku answers with a stutter and a nod. "I just gotta stop flinching instinctively." Asta nods in agreement before facing forwards towards the hero school. "Don't worry, Izuku. This is no longer like before. Just remember the past 10 months and I'm sure you'll be golden." Izuku nods back with a wide grin of his own. "Yeah. I just need to toughen up and move forward." Izuku's teeth show from the smile as he makes a heroic step forward. "This will be my first step towards becoming a hero." But just as he made that first step, Izuku suddenly trips on his own feet and begins to fall forward like a plank of wood. "Oh no! Izuku!" Asta was about to catch Izuku before he gets hurt. But as he moved, he paused to see that Izuku's body remained in place, catching both him and Izuku off guard. "Hey, you okay?" "Eep." Izuku squeaks when he heard a girl's voice talk to him while Asta turned around towards the source. As they looked, the boys see a short auburn-haired girl with a slender yet sea figure. She has large and round eyes matching the color of her hair and a perpetual blush on her cheeks. Asta watches the girl in question place a hand on Izuku's shoulder gently, allowing him to carefully plop back onto the ground. The gray-blonde boy rose a brow at this phenom, wondering if it has to do with her quirk, while Izuku's face started beaming red simply because a girl was near him. And she touched him. That was my quirk you've experienced, mister. It's called zero gravity. After explaining her power, the girl giggles with a light blush. Sorry for using it on you. Oh no. I should be thanking you, actually. The girl hears another boy speak up and turns her head to see Asta approaching her with a smile. If you hadn't saved my friend, he would have faceplanted onto the ground. I'm grateful that you did what you did. The girl's eyes widen at Asta before she closes them with a smile back. Oh, that's no problem. Besides, it's a bad omen to trip and fall. The girl then looks over to Izuku and sees that his head was now steaming like a pot. I know, this sure is nerve-wracking, am I right? Yeah. Seeing that his friend was still stuttering shyly, Asta spoke next. At first, it is, miss. But we've already gotten this far, right? So we might as well make the best of it. The girl laughs with Asta while grabbing onto the straps of her backpack. Yeah. That's right. With another happy tither, the girl turns around and starts to walk towards the school while waving a hand at the two boys. Best of luck to you too. Best of luck to you, too, miss. Asta replies with a wave back, with Izuku waving timidly with his face still red. Well, we better get a move on, Izuku. Asta took 3 steps forward towards the building. And as he did, he noticed that his friend wasn't next to him. Izuku? Asta turned his head around further and saw that Izuku was grinning stupidly to himself with a gleaming face. I talked to a girl. I actually talked to a girl. Asta deadpans at Izuku, knowing exactly what he was thinking and knows that he didn't actually speak to her. But as he kept smiling to himself with glee while finally getting Asta just shrugs as he follows him. I'll let him have it. The two boys finally made their way inside the UA Hero School building. Upon entry, they look around their surroundings with the most pleasant surprise ever. Wow! It's even more beautiful inside. Asta exclaims in joy with stars shining in his eyes. You can say that again, Asta. Izuku adds with the same emotions as his friend. As the two admired the place, some of the students slowed down their walking when they spotted Asta. Hey, isn't that the kid from the sludge villain incident? A boy asks. Yeah, I think so, a girl answers. That headband does look familiar. The boys stop scanning the inside of UA when they hear the students murmur about them, making Asta's ears twitch a little as he heard what they were talking about. I heard he was able to rescue the other 2 guys from the sludge villain without a quirk. Yeah, so did I. I even heard that kid with the headband doesn't even have a quirk. Really? So, does he plan on getting in the hero course the same way he took care of that blob of mud? I doubt it. He only saved 2 of his friends, he never truly defeated the villain. Hey, you never know. Man, there might be some surprises with that guy. And after seeing the moves he's pulled off, I think he might have a chance. Asta's ears and brows kept twitching as the students continued to talk about him. Seeing his expression, Izuku tapped on his shoulder, resulting in Asta jumping from his spot and darting his eyes at him. Everything okay, Asta? Asta blinks at his friend before smiling. Yeah, I'm good. Come on, let's find a spot to sit so we can get started. Right. And with that, the 2 boys marched forward towards the auditorium. No matter what obstacles come in front of them, it won't detour them from their goals. Ah, heck. Why is finding a seat so darn hard? Having got to the auditorium, Asta was now having a tough time finding a spot for him to sit. Izuku has found his own spot while walking with Asta, and after discovering that there was only 1 seat at the row, Izuku insisted that he can sit on his own, even if Katsuki why him. Asta was hesitant at first, but he reluctantly heeded his friend's words and went to find another seat. The gray-blonde boy looked high and low, and he still had no luck finding a chair to sit in. And even if he did, he was told that it was saved for some friends who were taking a queue to the bathroom. After a few more minutes of searching and moving at the speed that would make some viewers think he's teleporting like in an animatic, Asta fell to his knees with tears stream waterfalls. Ah crap. Ah crap, ah crap, ah crap. If I don't find a seat soon, I don't think I'll be able to start the exams. This seat is open to take, ribbit. Asta blinked with beady eyes when he heard someone speak to him. Turning his head right, he looks to see a short, relatively slender girl padding on the chair next to her, have a frog-like appearance. The girl has black oval-shaped eyes, large hands, big feet, and very long dark sea-green hair that reached all the way to her waist with the ends tied together at the bottom in a bow. Oh. Thank you kindly, miss. Asta says to the green-haired girl before taking his seat next to her. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but you saved my bacon here. You're welcome. The girl replied with another ribbit. Just try to keep your voice down. You're a little too loud. Asta's eyes widen a little at her last sentence before blushing with horizontal eyes. Sorry. I shout whenever I'm very excited and pumped up. Ha ha ha. The green-haired girl looks at Asta with her expression not changing in the slightest. Can I assume you're excited about the exams? Well, I guess you can say that, Asta answers. Although, I'd be lying if I said that I don't feel the slightest bit nervous about them. Well, this is the hero course, ribbit, so we're going to have a lot of expectations on how this will go. At least for the more physical portion, that is. Yeah. I can imagine. Asta then lifts his arms in front of them and clenches his hands into fists. But I ain't backing down anytime soon. I've worked my ass off to get this far, and not letting this nervousness I feel make me turn back. The green-haired girl blinks at Asta while placing a finger on her chin. You're quite the determined boy, aren't you? Asta snickers at the girl's compliment. You know it. I refuse to give up now. I'm giving this exam everything I got, both mentally and physically. You're yelling again. Asta's eyes widen at what she said and apologizes again. As he was, the girl kept her stare on the now bashful boy. Still, I feel like I've heard of this boy was busy studying and training for this exam. But my siblings kept telling me about a quirkless boy they saw on TV. Oh yeah, the girl's thoughts were cut off when Asta speaks to her again. My name's Asta Kurosaki, but you can call me Asta. The girl tilted her head at the sudden introduction with a ribbit before deciding to tell him her name, too. Suyu Ajui. Let's do our best from here on out, Asta-chan. Agreed, Ajui-san. After introducing themselves to each other, the two noticed the lights of the auditorium die down, prompting them and the rest of the students from different junior high schools silent and face forwards towards the center of the stage, where the lights there are still shining bright. On the large screen at the stage, the logo for UA can be seen smack in middle of it as soon as it turned on. Seconds after that, a tall, funky-looking man walks onto the stage and flashes the kids a grin with his shades flashing in sync with the smile. The man has a large blonde MHA eyes covered by golden sunglasses, and an attire that makes one assume that he's into any kind of punk rock band associated with the appearance. Welcome one and all, UA candidates, to today's live performance. The man roars before putting a hand over to his ear. Everybody say HUI. Everyone was dead silent. Not a single student responded to the man's mighty call. Some covered their ears because of how loud he was, while some just stared at him with and people say I'm too rowdy. Asta whispers with a beady-eyed deadpan of his own. Suyu heard what Asta uttered and said nothing, only rib-biting before shifting her eyes back at the man in the punk rock costume. No response. The blond man questions timidly before returning back to his cheerful persona. Well, that's cool, my examinee listeners. Most of you know me, but I am the hero, Present Mike, and I'm here to present the guidelines of your practical. Are you ready? Present Mike screams a cheer again, hoping for at least some of the students to respond with the same enthusiasm as himself. But once again, the crowd was silent. However, if one listens carefully, they can hear the subtle chirping of a cricket. Wow. Tough crowd. President Mike whispers with a sad frown before getting back into character. But anyway, let's have a look at how the exams will go, shall we, my listeners? As if on cue, the screen behind the Mohawk men flashed a different photo onto it. Upon further inspection, the students saw the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and G in their own box seat to a location that appears to be where the physical portion of the exam will take place. Now, y'all will be experiencing 10-minute-long mock cityscape maneuvers. President Mike continues with a peace sign. Bring along whatever you need to perform this portion O exams. After this presentation and that you've taken care of the written portion, y'all will each head to your assigned testing location. Asta studies the image on the screen while paying attention to present Mick's explanation and nods to himself with a thinking expression, I understand. Because of how many of us there are, they've prepared multiple rooms so that the physical portion of the exams can be taken care of quicker. Suyu nods at Asta in confirmation with a ribbit. That, and so the folks from the same junior high school can't help each other out since the classmates will be in different rooms. At least that's what I'm assuming. Asta hums at Suyu's thoughts before the screen changes images to a different portion of the arena with characters that Asta found to be familiar with robots next to those char. Each site is filled with 3 kinds of faux villains. Points are awarded for defeating each robot according to their respective difficulty levels. After President Mike says that, the SC shows another familiar character jumping, throwing fireballs, and attacking with his tail that he didn't have seconds ago. Use your quirks to disable these faux villains and earn you can destroy them or immobilize them. That's your goal, listeners. The higher your score, the higher chance you'll be accepted into UA. And of course, going anti-hero and other examinees is prohibited. So don't play dirty, folks. Are they using Super Mario Bros. For their examples on how the physical exams will work? Asta questions with a tilted head. Yup, Suyu confirms before placing a finger on her chin. Odd choice for showing the instructions, though. I'll say. Excuse me. May I ask a question, President Mike Sensei? Everyone turns their heads with raised brows when they hear someone speak. Upon eye contact, they see a tall male student with short dark blue hair and blue eyes behind AP glasses raising his hand. President Mike blinks at the student before giving him an OK symbol with his hand. Why yes. Go ahead. The glasses-wearing man proceeds to pull out a piece of paper he kept with him and points a finger at it with a very serious expression. There appear to be no fewer than 4 varieties of the faux villain in this handout. Such a blatant error, if it is one, is highly unbecoming for UA, Japan's top hero academy. W here today in the hopes of being molded into model heroes. Asta rose a brow at what the blue-haired man said before taking out his own copy of the handout. After looking back at the screen and the paper a few times, the gray-blonde bee learned that the glasses-wearing boy was correct. That's quite the find he's made, Asta thought as he sets his eyes back on him. I'll bet he'll make quite the hero with smarts like his. And you, with the curly hair. Asta then saw that the blue-haired student was now pointing somewhere. When everyone looked, they see that he was pointing at Izuku, who drew with a chirp when he caught his attention. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting, the boy says with a glare, scaring the green-haired boy a little. If this is some of game to you, then please leave immediately. Asta's brow starts to twitch when he then starts to hear some of the students giggle and snicker at Izuku's now embarrassed state. With his hearing, he could hear them wisp each other at how much of a stuttering mess he was, how he might not make it through the exams, and all sorts of things that made poor Izuku more nervous than before. With gritted teeth, Asta stands up and shoots a narrow-eyed stare with contracted irises right at the blue-haired student, unknowingly getting Tsuyu's attention in the progress. Oi! Glasses guy! Everyone stops and turns their heads to Asta when they hear him roar for the blue-haired boy, who gasped and looked at Asta when he heard him. Maybe TH over there is murmuring because he's thinking up a heroic strategy to pass the exams. He might also be a little nervous about how he'll perform because of how difficult it will be. No, he's not the only one feeling this way. Everyone's eyes widen at Asta's outburst, with the blue-haired student being the most shocked at him. President Mike cocked a brow in slight interest, recognizing the gray-blonde hair and the structure of his face from 10 months ago. And another thing. Asta continues before pointing a finger at the glasses-wearing boy. I'm thinking it's a game? What kind of a crappy conclusion is that? Here you were a Ciego using great detective skills to find something out about the full villains only for you to falter by making such a terrible accusation towards him. It's kind of a jerk move, Pa Izuku gasps at Asta with a shocked face while Katsuki just kept his eyes on the gray-blonde boy with furrowed brows and a frown. That hit the glasses-wearing boy hard. While his body shivered at Asta's words, he shifts his eyes downwards while slowly sitting back down while quietly saying sorry in T-process, surprising a few of the students. While most have stayed quiet, there were a few students that started whispering to each other as soon as they started to recognize Asta from the incident 10 months ago. Suyu kept her stare onto Asta, who was sitting back down after taking a breath to calm himself down. Wow, Asta-chan, she whispers with a rib bit. That was quite the statement you made to him. Sorry about that, Asta says while clenching his hands. That green-haired guy up there. He's my friend, and after the glasses guy jumped to such a bad conclusion. Suyu smiles at Asta, catching the young boy off guard when she followed it with a gentle hand on his shoulder. Say no more, Asta-chan. You felt the need to protect your friend, and you did just that. It's very kind of you to do that. Asta's eyes widen at the frog-like girl. He then smiles at her with a grateful expression. Thanks for understanding, Azui-san. Call me Tsu. Asta tilts his head. I said you can call me Tsu, Asta-chan. Asta tilts his head at the offer. Without an honorific? It can be whatever you want as long as it's good, ribbit. Normally, I'd only allow friends to call me Tsu, but since you're a nice guy, I think I'll start letting you call me that. 2. Asta blinks at Tsuyu 4 times before smirking again and facing forward. Well, if that's what you want, then I'll address you as such. Asta pauses to look back at Tsuyu and gives her a toothy grin with closed eyes. Tsuchan Tsuyu moves her head back a little in slight surprise at the kind smile. As she looked away from him to face present Mike, her cheeks slowly faded into pink. Alright, anyway, present Mike began after Asta's outburst towards the blue-haired boy has passed. That was a nice catch, examinee 711. You have my thanks. The glasses student didn't respond. But, you see, the fourth full villain variety gives you 0 points. He's more of an obstacle that you need to avoid at all costs. Take the Thwomp from S. Mario Brothers, for example. There is only one at each site. A gimmick that'll rampage around in close quarters. I see, the blue-haired boy says, standing up. So it's like an unstoppable gimmick. He then bows his head to present Mike. Thank you, sir. I apologize for the interruption. Well, that's all from me, ladies and gents. Present Mike booms with excitement. I'll leave my listeners with our school motto. Like the great hero, Napoleon Bonaparte once said, heroism consists of being superior to the ills of life. The blonde man then gives the students 2 peace signs before shouting, Go plus ultra. Asta blinks at the 2 words that echoed through the auditorium and snickers in enthusiasm. Hey, I like that phrase. It's got a nice ring to it. With a wider grin, Asta stands up, pumps his fists into the air and roars, plus ultra. While everyone gave Asta a weird look, with Tsuyu tilting her head at him, present Mike laughs with the gray-blonde boy. Happy that someone repeated with him for once. Ha ha. Glad to see that someone's motivated. Now, break a leg out there, folks. With that said, everyone else stood up from their spots and started to walk their way towards the exams. As they were, Asta looks towards Tsuyu and gives her a wave. Welp, good luck out there, Tsuchan. I hope that we both pass. Tsuyu nods with a ribbit. Good luck to you too, Asta-chan. After nodding back, Asta marched forward towards the doors that would lead him to the first part of the exams. Alrighty. Time for all of my studying to pay off, along with my strength for the next portion. After the written portion of the exam was taken care of, Asta was now outside at his assigned cityscape with his black running shoes, gray running pants, and his black hoodie W sleeves rolled up, exposing his muscular arms. Whoa! This is awesome! Asta shouts as he looks at his surroundings with stars in his eyes. I mean, I knew the arena would be big, but up close, this place is ginormous. It's CAB considered as an actual city. Asta continued to look at the nicely constructed buildings until his ears picked up the voices of the examinees that are with him. Turning his head behind him, Asta could see AV students with their own choice in outfits and even equipment to match their quirks. One of the many students is a muscular red-haired boy with matching colored eyes wearing all red, another boy who's tall and has chin-length black hair and matching eyes while looking a little bulky than usual. A girl with teal eyes and orange hair tied in a ponytail wearing an outfit that's suited for a kung fu warrior, and a petite girl with onyx eyes, short purple hair with an asymmetrical fringe and two reflections shaped like heartbeat monitor waves, and flexible plug-like earphone jacks hanging from each of her earlobes, extra limbs. As he observed the examinees further, Asta knew that the competition will be intense because of the possible types of quirks they have. But like the other mishaps from 10MO, it wasn't going to make him turn back. Well, if it isn't the kid who tangoed with the sludge villain. Asta's eyes widened when he heard someone call out to him. Turning his head, he sees an average-height blonde man with blue eyes walking over to him with his hands in his pee and a smug face, an expression that made Asta a little wary of him. Can I help you? Oh, no, the blonde man replies with his grin still intact. I'm just measuring up who my current opponents are in this exam. And looking at you, while your physique is rather impressive, you're easy pickings for those faux villains. Asta's expression didn't change, but he did frown at how he was behaving. Don't judge a book by its cover, mister. The blonde boy laughs with a hand on his forehead, causing the other students to look over towards the two boys. Some of the students rose a brow in curiosity, while a small F at the gray blonde boy in familiarity. After calming down from his laughter, the blonde boy gave Asta a wide-eyed stare and a bigger grin. What's there to judge? You've got no damn quirk. And even if your thick muscles will get you far, you're just like the rest of these weaklings. The boy's smug expression turns shall be the one to pass with flying colors. And once I do, I'll dash. The blonde boy was interrupted when Asta got closer to him, catching him and the other students watching off guard. And upon seeing his face, the blonde boy froze with a nervous expression when Asta stared at him with a very rigid face. Being a hero is not a game, and it should not be a competition. Please take this exam seriously. Everyone gasps at the serious tone in the gray blonde boy's voice, having been surprised at Asta's response to the blonde boy despite being loud and a little crazy according to who recognized him. But no one was affected by Asta's scolding more than the blonde boy. He was stumbling on his words with widened eyes trying to find a counter to the gray blonde boy. And just found something to say back to him. And begin. Asta started to sprint forwards into the arena as soon as he heard President Mick's voice boom from somewhere in the arena, confusing the examinees as they watch him get farther from them into the cityscape. What are y'all standing around for? President Mike asks the students from a tall building, getting their attention. There ain't no countdowns in a real battle. Y'all better follow TH lead if you want to get into UA. With a gasp and realization, the students began to run towards where Asta went as fast as they could, not wanting to fall behind. Back with Asta, he was already inside of the cityscape, currently in between two buildings while keeping alert with his surroundings. Okay. If I were a villain that wants to destroy a hero, where would I jump out and attack? Kaboom! Ha! Asta did a 180-degree turn when he heard an explosion from behind him, revealing that the building to his right got destroyed by what appears to be a large robotic arm. As the crumbled, Asta yelps with small irises when he sees a large green robot with a white number 1 painted on each of its blade-shaped shields with a Gatling gun for one arm and other being just a robot arm. That's a one-pointer. Asta shouts as it jaunts closer to him, prompting the gray blonde boy to get in a fighting position. The robot made the first move, aiming its Gatling gun arm towards Asta. With an eep, the gray blonde boy rolls right to avoid the rubber bullets from the gun. Seeing his MO villain lifts its other arm to do a downward strike. Asta sidesteps the attack. And when he sees that the robot's arm is still on the ground, he took this chance to jump on top of it and run forwards towards its head. Before the arrow could do anything, Asta leaps off its arm and lands on its neck. As he did, the robot started to jolt its body around in an attempt to shake Asta off. But he won't let go. Alrighty. Where's that sons of guns weak spot? Asta kept his grip tight on the full villain's neck while searching for a spot to destroy with a kick or his bare hands. As he was, the robot's shaking got stronger and stronger, causing one of Asta's arms to slip off of its neck. Regaining his grip, Asta kept searching with stern contracted irises until they come across a small pair of wires connecting to the very bottom of its neck. His eyes trace the wire times before he smirks at them. Bingo! As soon as he made this discovery, the robot swung its neck backwards. And because Asta was distracted by his finding, he was flung off of the full villain and landed on the RU from the destroyed building on his back. Asta hissed at the jolt of pain that went through his spine, but thankfully, nothing was broken and none of the sharp material from the debris stabbed him anywhere. He pushed his hands onto the pile of debris he's on in an attempt to get up, but as he was, his eyes broadened a little when he felt something on his right hand. Turning his head to it, Asta sees a piece of metal. Upon further inspection, he saw that it was almost shaped like a katana's blade, but a little thicker than the blade of the actual Japanese sword, with the sharp edge itself being a little jagged and the tip of the metal about as pointy as a spear's. Asta studies the metal's shape further, and judging by its color's appearance, it looked to be in pretty great condition despite it being just blown off from the building the Wonpa destroyed. I wonder. Target locked. Asta snaps his head back to the robot and screeches when he sees its chain gun arm aimed right at him. Firing. With his instincts kicking in, Asta rolled sideways and jumps to the one-pointer's right side to avoid the hailstorm of rubber bullets. With the sword-like metal still gripped in his hand, he then leaps back on top of its back and grabs onto its neck with his left hand. Flipping the sharp metal in a reverse grip, Asta stares down at the wires at the bottom of the one-pointer's neck and takes aim. Here goes nothing. With fire in his eyes, Asta brings the pointed edge of the metal downwards with a strong force and impales it into the robot's neck, cutting the wires in the process. The full villain was reaching its hand towards Asta to throw him off again, but it came to a halt as the metal severed the cables while stuck in its neck. The one-pointer remained 5 more seconds before Asta watches it slowly lean forward and begin to fall. Asta loses balance for a moment while flailing his arms with white eyes and quickly grabs onto his metal to regain it as it flops onto the ground with a loud thud. As soon as the red eye of the robot flickered a few times before completely turning off, rendering the full villain deactivated. Asta looks down at the destroyed robot with surprise all over his face. Holy crap, it worked! After looking over his first point, Asta looks back at the metal that aided in slaying the robot. Still bewildered that it was strong enough to stab its neck. But can it be pulled out and used again? Wanting to test his question, Asta grabs onto the metal with both of his hands and pulls with all of his might. It took a couple of tugs, but he finally got it out, resulting in the GR blonde boy jumping off the robot and landing on the ground on his butt. Asta hisses as he gets back up while rubbing his bottom with his left hand. After the pain receded, he looks over to his other hand that carried the metal that destroyed the foe, and much to his surprise, the pointed end and the sharp edge were still intact. Feeling the need to double-check, Asta quickly positioned himself with the metal and performed some test swings with it as if it were a sword. Feels sturdy enough to keep using. As he kept swinging the metal, both with one hand and 2 hands, Asta shifts his eyes towards a thick metal pole that remained stuck on the ground from his battle with the on-pointer. With a thoughtful expression, he approaches it and takes aim with his sharp metal. With a roar, Asta hits the metal against the pole as hard as he could. Once it made contact, he saw that the metal didn't bend even the slightest. He expected the top part with point to make at least a little curve, but since he didn't hit the pole with the top, it was still good. With a cocked brow, Asta brings his weapon closer to his face. Scanning the object for another moment, he smiles to himself. Well, I guess this will serve as my weapon against those faux villains, for now. With his grip tightened on the weapon, Asta sets off back outside in the open field of the arena with his new makeshift sword. Alrighty. I've got 1 point, Asta says while increasing his speed from a jog to a run. Now let's see if I can rake up some more. Now out from between the two buildings, one of which was destroyed, Asta encounters another one-pointer that leaped in front of him. It tried to punch the gray blonde boy, Bu dodged to the right before jumping forward towards its face. With gritted teeth, Asta aims the pointed part of his makeshift weapon at its eye and thrusts his arm forward. He impales the eye, causing the robot to stop in place. Because it blinded, the faux villain started to fire off its chain gun aimlessly, only hitting the spots where Asta wasn't at. And thankfully, it wasn't gunning down anyone else with its rubber landing. After attacking, Asta quickly pulls out his metal and zips around the robot to jump and land the finishing blow on its neck, scoring himself another point. After pulling out his weapon, Asta kept moving forward like there's no tomorrow. While he noticed from the corner of his eyes that the other students were fighting Robo. He saw the red-haired kid appearing more rock-like, punching a one-pointer in the face, cleaving its head off in the process. Then the black-haired boy using tape from his arms tee over an enemy, and finally, the purple-haired girl using some kind of sonic waves from her unique lobes to blast away a one-pointer's legs. This is getting fierce, Asta thought as he stares back forward. If I'm not quick, there won't be any robots left. Just as he thought that last sentence, another robot appears before him. It looked like a hybrid of a four-legged spider, a dinosaur, and a scorpion. On the front legs, Asta saw T number 2 on each one, confirming its identity as a two-pointer. Asta kept his stare locked onto the faux villain, waiting for it to make its move so he can study its pattern while looking for any weak spots of its own. As he did, the robot aimed its tail at Asta and strikes it forward. Asta parried it just as it reached him, causing the tail to curve around and hit itself in the face. He took that MHA jump and reached for the two-pointer's head and thrust his metal forward, stabbing both of its eyes, with the point hitting the left eye and going through its head to poke out of THI. After releasing the metal from the two-pointer's head, Asta landed and then aimed it at the bottom of the front of its neck, seeing a gap in between the parts. And sure enough, makeshift sword was able to penetrate through there and shut down the robot because of the severed cables in the neck, making it collapse on the ground after Asta pulls his W out of its neck. Ha! What is it with these robots having necks as the spot to disable them? Asta kept his stare on the two-pointer for another second before shrugging. Okay, that would total points to 4. I'd better keep moving and dash. Oh crap. Asta pauses his speaking when he heard a female voice shout out. Turning towards the source, his eyes widen when he sees two two-pointers and a robot that looked a little MHA-like with shoulder guns that has a red 3 painted on each arm of it, showing that this robot in the middle of the two-pointers is a 3-pointer, the toughest robot of the THRE counting the 0-pointer. And from in front of them, he could catch a sight of dark moss green hair from a girl that looks to be having a hard time getting away from the faux villains because of some of caught in the rubble caused by the bots. Oh no! That girl in front of those 3 robots is in trouble. With narrowed eyes, Asta charges forward while cocking his makeshift sword to his side. Oi! Scrap metal, his roar seemed to have caught their attention as the robots slowly turned their heads towards the gray blonde boy who kept coming. Y'all should split. The first two-pointer attempts to rush Asta, only for him to slide under it and roll towards the 3-pointer, blocking the path between the robot and the green-haired girl, who the newcomer with surprise on her face. Damn! This 3-pointer looks more protective than the other robots. Asta thought as he studied it while blocking some attacks from the two-pointers. I'm not even sure if MHA can make a dent without bending or breaking. The green-haired girl continued to watch Asta defend her and himself from the two-pointers while the 3-pointer stalked closer towards them. Feeling the tension of the battle, shouts out to him in hopes to help him. Oi, dude! Try to destroy one of the 3-pointer's shoulder guns. Asta takes a quick glance at the girl before setting his focus back onto the robots. But how will I do that? Try jamming them with whatever can fit through those holes. But be careful. They launch missiles. Asta grits his teeth as kept defending the girl from the two-pointers and the 3-pointer. As he observed the guns on the 3-pointer's shoulders, he saw that they were small to fit the missiles the girl spoke of, and there wasn't quite anything he could quickly use instead of his metal without going too far and letting the girl get hurt by the foe. The girl behind me wants me to clog up the 3-pointer's guns, he thought while blocking another tail strike from a 2-pointer. But the holes look too small, and I don't want breaking my weapon. Just what can I possibly use to? Wait. She mentions something about missiles. Asta takes another look at the tails on the two-pointers and traces their size and shape with his eyes. As he did, an idea hatched in his head. Gripping his makeshift sword in his hand, Asta jumps above to the three-pointer and lands on one of its guns. Oi! Two-pointers, the two robots, turn their heads over to where Asta is and see him turn around and smack his butt in front of them. Try me, ya pieces of scrap metal. The green-haired girl gasps when she sees Asta trying to tempt one of the two-pointers to attack him. His plan seems to work. As the first one aimed its tail towards him and went to hit him, only for Asta to jump off the three-pointer's missile launcher in time just as the tip of the pierced it. As a result of this, Asta and the girl looked to see the three-pointer's right shoulder blow up because of the two-pointer's tail hitting one of the missiles inside it. The blast radius even caught the two-pointer that stabbed it, blowing both of the robots away with the three-pointer disabled and the two-pointer destroyed beyond repair. Bika Asta's actions. The dark green-haired girl continues to watch in awe as Asta then engages the last two-pointer near them. She watches him jump as high as he can go and take out the robots with his makeshift sword before finally shutting it down with a stab in its neck. After watching the faux villain fall to the ground, instead of counting how many points in total he has, Asta immediately turns around and approaches the green-haired girl, but her arms and legs trapped in the rubble caused by the robots. Keep still, miss. I'm getting you out of there. Dropping his sharp metal, Asta starts with the rubble on her right arm and grabs hold of the debris. Heave. Ho! The green-haired girl felt the pressure be removed as soon as Asta lifted them up, leaving her appalled at his raw strength as he did the same for her other arm and her legs. Phew! You all right, miss? Asta asks the girl immediately after dusting his hands from freeing her from the debris. Nothing broken? The green-haired girl blinks at Asta a few times before twirling some strands of hair in her hand. Why, yeah. I'm good. Asta looks over to the girl to double-check for any potential bruises. As he did, his face froze when he saw something out of the ordinary that spooked him. No, you're not. Ha! The green-haired girl looks over to where the freaked-out Asta was pointing and sees that her left arm was missing. Oh, that? Ha 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 ha. 'Tis but a scratch? Your arm's off. The green-haired girl lets out another hearty laugh with her one intact hand on her hip. Relax, dude. It really isn't anything to worry about. With a smirk, the girl aims her stub towards where she thinks her arm is and motions her head on that spot. Here, watch Asta pays attention to what the green-haired girl was trying to do and looks to see her missing arm hover towards her and plug itself back into the stub like a magnet. See? Problem solved, the girl says as she flexes her reattached arm, drawing an astonished look from Asta. Whoa! So, does your quirk make your body parts magnetic and easily reattach or something? You're right on the reattach part, she answers. It's also based on a reptile's ability to regenerate lost or destroyed limbs. With a toothy grin, she points her thumb at Hersel's quirk is called Lizard Tail Splitter. With it, not only can I do what I've explained earlier, but it'll also allow me to split my body up into a lot of pieces and get them to levitate and through the air. She then covers her face with both of her hands for a moment before quickly removing them. Just like so. Asta jumps with a scream when he sees the dark green-haired girl's face split apart, making a rather scary expression because of each piece's arrangement. And after seeing is freaked out by what she did, she puts her face back together while laughing her butt off for 10 seconds before calming down. Hiya gets them every time, oh oi. That's not very hero-like to scare people, you know? The girl laughs at what the gray blonde boy said and walks closer to him with a wider smile. You're pretty funny, dude. What's your name? Asta blinks in surprise at her sudden forwardness. Asta Kurosaki, but I'm okay with just Asta. Asta, eh? The girl puts a finger on her chin as she processed his name. After a few more seconds pass, she grins again and pats Asta on the shoulder twice. I like that name. Cool mind Setsuna Tokage. Asta remains silent for a moment before replying with a smile while scratching the back of his head. Well, it's nice to meet you, but I think it's best we both get a move on. I've got an exam to pass after all. Yeah, you're right. Time gets shorter by the second, after all. With a nod, Setsuna began to run her own way, but not before turning her head around to Asta and giving him a up. Thanks again for back there, Asta-kun. And good luck. Best of luck to you, too. After he gave Setsuna a salute, Asta picks up his makeshift sword and proceeded to hunt for some more robots. And if there was anyone else that was about to have the same that girl, he fully intends to help them too, for that's how a hero should be when anyone is in danger. Meanwhile, while the students were partaking in the physical portion of the entrance exams, a group of judges and teachers in charge of keeping track of the students and there are watching their current progress. Among these spectators, there was one in particular that has the appearance of a short white animal with a scar over his right eye and was wearing a tuxedo and orange lace-you sneakers. While his head was that of a mouse, the rest of his body parts would leave one to believe that he's a chimera that's able to walk on two legs. We don't tell them how many villains there are or how they're placed. The animal says before folding his paws. Such a wide battlefield and limited time brings out the best in a few of the teachers nod in agreement. There are those who can assess the situation in an instant, he continues while observing the students on the monitors. Those who'll never be late for the party, those who see a with any given situation, and of course. The spectator looks to see Katsuki Bakugo surrounded by a huge pile of metal that used to be faux villains with his arms smoking from lot of explosions. There are the natural-born warriors. The abilities needed to preserve peace in our cities are judged by the points they earn. The teachers and other spectators nod and whisper to each other about their opinions on how the students are doing in the entrance exam. Some are intrigued with how they use quirks, and some are thinking that they can do a little better. And then there's this interesting fella. Everyone looks over to where the chimera was focusing his attention on now. In the monitor they saw Asta running around while fighting the faux villains with W thought was some impressive swordsmanship and clever use of a broken piece of metal. Along his way, the spectators then watch Asta help a female examinee from tripping and falling in a large pit created by a robot's attack. And after taking out another 2-point brought her to a safe area so she can get back on her feet. Thank you. You're welcome. Wait a minute, I think I've seen this kid before, the teacher who looked like a cement block with arms and legs said. Wasn't he on TV during the whole sludge villain incident, Nizu? Indeed, the animal confirms with a nod and a wider smile after watching Asta save 2 more students from getting injured by falling walls. While All Might did defeat the slud villain, it was that young lad who was able to pry the 2 hostages from his grasp. What makes it astounding? He did it despite his lack of a quirk. Interesting. Another judge says. He even knows how to improvise for combating the robots and finding their weak spots. Just who is this kid? His name is Asta Kurosaki. Everyone turns to see that a tall, curvaceous woman with sky blue eyes and abundant spiky dark purple black hair was the one who answered while intently at the monitor displaying the gray blonde boy with a grin. Word is he's gotten some people bringing back the debate on if the quirkless should be able to become hero because of his scuffle with the villain. Pausing, the woman's smirk widens as she witnesses Asta slide under a 2-pointer before jumping high in the air to decapitate the robo, disabling it in the process. And I must say, he's quite the treat to look at with a physique like his. After having made that comment, there was one spectator in particular who was paying attention to every single detail of Asta's performance with his arms crossed. He has long shoulder-length black hair and matching colored eyes that stayed on the monitor that displayed the quirkless gray blonde boy. He thought that term in quotations because this black-haired man has seen the footage of Asta fighting the sludge villain. Every single frame. And among those frames, he saw something happen to Asta's right eye that made him question if the boy really is quirkless. According to the documents, the doctors diagnosed such. But through his rather impressive maneuvers and how he discovered the sludge villain's weak spot, it was the sudden flicker of red in Asta's eye that made the black hair wonder if the doctors actually did their job properly. It was that same phenomenon that he was looking for right now. And while he was waiting for another possible moment like that, he watched Asta continue to slay the faux villain, help other students with his cunning parkour, his strength, and his skill with a blunt weapon. However, in his opinion, the spectator thought that Asta using a jagged piece of metal as a makeshift sword was pretty crude. A smart idea, but crude. This year's group is looking promising, aren't they? Another judge asks the others. Meh. No way to know yet. Another man says before guiding his finger to a red button with the text "Your rookies" switch at the bottom and presses. But this should tell us more abo true colors. Shink. 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 Asta has just finished his recent battle with 2 1-pointers and 1 2-pointer. So far, every encounter with these robots has gotten easier for him because of the attack Pat learned from them. As for the 3-pointers, they have become rare for him to come by after he defeated his second 3-pointer because the contestants with the stronger quirks would already have them as soon as he laid eyes on one every single time. Not that he was complaining. He was still getting a decent amount of robots coming to him, and as long as they were enough to get him into UA, that's all that matters to him. Phew. This is starting to become a grind. Asta says while wiping some sweat off his forehead. I don't even remember how many points I have now after doing all of this work as saving those other guys that were about to get hurt. He then grabs hold of his medal and pulls it out of the 2-pointer he slew. Right, better get a move on and dash THOM. Just as he rested his weapon on his shoulders, Asta froze still as he heard a huge explosion go off from behind him. Turning around, with other examinees near him to follow, to see a large cloud of smoke from the blast blocking the view of something big that was slowly coming towards them. It took a moment before the smoke cleared. And as soon as it did, everyone's eyes widened when they see a giant robot on wheels having a rectangular prism-shaped head with the eyes towering over them with its hands clutched onto the buildings. That large robot. Asta whispers with his body shaking a little as he observed it. This must be the 0-pointer. Just as he solved that puzzle, the 0-pointer crushes the top of a building in its left hand. And while Asta has expected it to be that strong, it didn't stop him from going eep. Saw the robot destroy it so easily. The 0-pointer then aims its right fist towards the ground and punches it hard, forcing everyone to cover their eyes with their arms because of the shockwave and the dust spewed from where it punched. As soon as it stopped, the students immediately turn around and run as fast as they can away from the 0-pointer so it won't squash them. And while Asta was following from, he kept shifting his eyes left and right not only to look for any rubble to jump over so he won't trip but to also see if there's anyone who may trip over. His first instinct if one does trip over is to quickly get them back on their feet, which kinda also serves as a reason why Asta is letting the other students get past him. Thanks to self-taught parkour training, Asta can detect any potential tripping hazards when he's running too fast. Taking a quick peek from behind, Asta's eyes nearly bulged from their sockets when he saw that the 0-pointer continued to destroy buildings as it locked its glowing red eyes and the others while it kept moving forward. Oh crap! If I'm not careful, the pieces of those buildings may land right on top of me. Rib bit. Ha! Hearing a familiar voice, Asta stops dead in his tracks and turns his body around. Scanning what's behind him, he gasps loudly when he sees a familiar green-haired girl that he befriended at the auditorium. What got him worried? Her legs were caught under some of the debris while she was sitting on her, but from what he assumed was because of the rubble near the one that's trapping her legs. That's Tsu-chan. Less than 2 minutes left, ladies and germs. 2 minutes? Asta grips onto his piece of metal tightly as he heard how much time he had left from present mic. If he wasn't quick, he'll lose out on collecting more points while avoiding the pointer. But immediately after he thought of that, Asta remembered what it truly means to be a hero, to protect the innocent. And not to be rich and famous. And for the most part, it is the point collection and the possibility of some of the students treating this as a real-life arcade game of sorts for trying to go for the highest points. Followed by that thought, he also recalled what All Might told him during the sludge villain incident before he landed the finishing blow on the slimy fiend: a pro hero should always be ready to risk their lives, no matter the odds. With all of that in mind, Asta's eyes slid towards the 0-pointer with a tighter grip on his weapon. With a left foot forward, he began to sprint over towards the giant robot with intent of getting Tsuyu out of its path. As he kept going, he ran past the purple-haired girl with the plug-like earphone jacks from her earlobes. Oi! What the hell are you doing? The girl asks the gray-blonde boy as soon as she noticed him going in the opposite direction as the rest of the examinees. Somebody over there is in trouble. Asta replies without batting an eye to the girl, who continued to stare at him with bewilderment before resuming to run away from the Zero with a determined gaze. Asta kept sprinting towards the giant robot, hoping that he's fast enough to block it from running over Tsuyu as he saw that it wasn't too close to the T-girl. Along the way, he dodged and leaped over the fallen pieces of the buildings the zero-pointer destroyed, using some of those as speed boosts while jumping over them by G onto the top of the rubble and pulling forward. It took 10 seconds, but Asta finally got over to Tsuyu, catching the girl off guard when she saw him close to her. Asta-chan. It's okay, Su-chan. Asta tries to assure her despite his serious expression. Just keep still and I'll set your legs free. Just as he said that, Asta and Tsuyu jump when they hear the zero-pointer run over some of the rubble it created from destroying some of the buildings. Measuring the distance, Asta grits his teeth when he mentally notes that he's probably not going to have enough time to save Tsuyu because of how large and heavy the rubble her legs are, as well as the ones piling on top of it. Weighing down his options quickly, Asta decides to stride past Tsuyu and face the robot head-on, making the girl even more shocked at his sudden action. Asta-chan? Asta bellows at the zero-pointer, causing everyone to look behind them and see him near the giant robot. If you want to crush someone with gigantic wheels of yours, then come after me and leave my friend alone. Everyone watches Asta run over to the zero-pointer's left side where there are no buildings, with the gray-blonde boy hoping that its gaze will follow him and go to him instead, and possibly, the rest of the examinees. Unfortunately for him, the robot didn't seem to have noticed Asta's challenge and continued to move forward. Seriously? You're ignoring me? Asta questions the zero-pointer with white eyes of annoyance before they turn beady green in realization. Right. Artificial intelligence. With a twirl of his makeshift sword, Asta looks over to the robot's right side and saw two buildings still intact near Tsuyu. Having an idea, Asta runs over towards the buildings to get in between them. Okay then. If your programming's not going to pick up my voice. Tsuyu watches Asta jump at the wall before pushing his feet against it to go upwards towards the wall of TH building on the opposite side. Then I'll just simply make you pay attention to me. Tsuyu's eyes remained broadened when she saw Asta wall jump his way up to the zero-pointer to get on its head level. Because of his amazing agility and stamina, it left her wondering what kind of quirk the gray-blonde boy has. Or rather, if he's using a quirk at all. Once he finally got on top of a building, Asta sets his stare back to the zero-pointer with his sharp metal in his hand. He only has one shot at landing on the robot's shoulder and way to climb up his head before it could get close to Tsuyu. So, with his feet firm on the ground, Asta patiently waits for the zero-pointer to get close enough to him to where he can on its cubic left shoulder. Thanks to the other hard part connected to its head, he'll have no problem climbing up there with either his wall jump technique on said parts and the vent part of the shoulder, or by doing wall climbs on his head. As soon as the zero-pointer was at an appropriate distance without it being too close to Tsuyu, Asta taps his foot twice before breaking into a full sprint towards its left shoulder. Asta leaps off the corner of the building while holding onto his weapon tight. He could almost hear his heart thumping loud and hard as he took this leap of fate, and whether or pull it off, he is yet to find out. And much to everyone's surprise, Asta made it on his shoulder with a tumble. But with his sharp piece of metal, he managed to impale it onto an open part of that area so he fall off. With his expression still nerve-wracking, Asta holds on tight as he slowly gets back on his feet before carefully removing his makeshift blade out of the shoulder. Holy hell! I did it! Asta says with whitened eyes. I actually landed on the zero-pointer. But he knew that he didn't have time to waste. Tsuyu's life is still on the line, and he had to find a way to make the giant robot only pay attention to him and try to get him to evac, or at the very least, get in a different direction. And he's willing to keep that up for the last remaining minutes on the exams clock. With an idea that was used to take out the other faux villains, Asta then puts the non-sharp part of his makeshift sword in his teeth and jogs forwards towards the platform that connected to the zero-pointer's head. As he managed to wall climb that part, he was very thankful that its mode of transportation was wheels. If not, then getting up to he would have been harder than it is now. Is that guy insane? An examinee asks as he watches Asta climb up the zero-pointer's head from afar. Has he forgotten that defeating that hunk of metal won't get him any points? How does he intend to destroy it anyway? The damn thing's invincible. Among the students who continued to call Asta crazy for climbing the zero-pointer like a monkey, there were at least 3 students who just stayed silent at what he was able to. Those students were the red-haired boy, the girl with orange hair, and the purple-haired girl with the unique ear-jack lobes. Having finally gotten on top of the giant robot's head, Asta releases his weapon from his teeth and puts it back in his right hand while keeping his other hand firmly on the zero head for support for when he tries to get close to its eyes. Crawling towards the corner where they are, Asta holds his metal in a reverse grip and aims for the top right eye of the zero-pointer. With a shout, Asta jams the sharp point of the metal into the mechanical red eye, drawing shock from all the examinees, and even some of the judges and spectators from the room. And just as Asta landed the hit, the zero-pointer stopped moving. Not because it ceased its functions, but its programming has been notified that it is under attack by the boy W. His head. Ha! Now you'll have to make me your priority target, you metalhead. After pulling out his makeshift sword, Aston impales it on the top middle eye next, while being as careful as he can to not fall over. As he was about to move on to its last top eye, the zero-pointer lifts its right hand upwards and aims its palm towards its own head. Having seen how it was positioned, Suyu lets out a frog croak in fear for Asta's life and shouts as loud as she could, "Asta-chan! Look out!" Ha! After hearing Suyu's shout of warning, Asta then took notice of a dark shadow that was covering his whole body. Looking up to see where it came from, he screams with white when he saw that the zero-pointer was about to squash him like a mosquito. Not wanting to die young, Asta quickly jumps high in the air to avoid the giant robot's hand while keeping his makeshift weapon close to himself. And as he did, he witnessed so that he and the other examinees kinda didn't expect. Once the zero-pointer slammed its palm onto the top of its head, everyone gasped to see that it had destroyed a decent portion of itself. It wasn't completely totaled to where it longer operate, but it was damaged to the point where some medium-sized holes and some strong dents were made. Just as he saw this, Asta then remembers that he was about to fall now. Clutching his sharp metal, he looks for a spot on his head that he can stick it into so he can climb back zero-pointer's head since it's still functioning. Finding a very small crevasse, Asta stabs his metal into it with as much force as possible, leaving him hanging on from the ledge of the left of the zero-pointer's head. With grit he climbs up the ledge while hanging on as tight as he can since the robot's head was now lightly tilting left and right. As he was doing so, the examinees from afar, as well as the judges and spectators in their room, continued to look on with completely flabbergasted expressions. While some of students don't quite know this, those who do and the judges and spectators are witnessing a quirkless boy climbing and hanging onto a robot that was supposed to be avoidable was able to do some damage and make it swat itself on the head because of those actions. And while some didn't know why, a few of the spectators and judges were able to put it together on the reason Asta's really taking on the zero-pointer. Including a certain smirking blonde man of skin and bones who happened to also be one of those spectators. After he finally got back onto the rocking head, Asta looks over to how much damage the top of its head was caused by its attempt to crush him. And among the punctured hole dents caused by the robot's hand, Asta saw something from the inside of a hole where one could fit a hand through it. Upon further inspection, Asta's eyes widen a bit when he sees a small cube-shaped object that looked to be what's making it function. That must serve as the brain. As soon as Asta made that comparison, another light bulb appeared above his head. Perhaps if I destroy that with my piece of metal, it'll shut D completely and not run over Tsuchan if it decides to move forwards again. With a nod to himself, Asta quickly crawls over to his makeshift weapon and gently grabs hold of it. Getting on one knee, he places his other hand onto it and pulls. But with a few more tugs, Asta heard a loud snap come from his blunt weapon and looks to see that it is broken in two, leaving the sharp part stuck in the crevasse and the D's hands. Ah, nuts. And it lasted so long, too. With his makeshift sword now useless, Asta was left with no weapon to penetrate the cube-shaped battery. Crawling over to the hole where he saw it, it looked to be reachable, but with the number of wires and other sharp pieces of metal from when the zero-pointer smashed itself in the head, it looked pretty dangerous to try and pry it out with a bare, and just as he observed that fact, Asta blinks when he felt the zero-pointer begin to move forward again. Looking over his shoulder, his fears were confirmed as he saw that Tsu slowly getting closer and closer in view. And not even the strength of her legs was enough to free herself as soon as she noticed its movement. Asta was now in a mild state of panic. He knows that if he doesn't act quickly, Tsuyu will be crushed under the giant robot's wheels. And since he lost the use of his sharp piece, there weren't any safer ways of destroying the battery. And so, he decided to do the one thing that he knew would be pretty risky: pull the battery out with his bare hand. Getting onto his stomach, Asta reaches his right hand through the hole where the cube-shaped battery is and tried to grope around for it. Since his forearm was all that could find the hole, he couldn't quite make an exact pinpoint on where the cube is. And he didn't have time to pull out his hand to take another look. The zero-pointer was approaching TS. He has to get that battery out of there right now. After seconds of searching while getting some nicks here and there on the top of his hand and his fingertips, Asta finally felt the cubic structure of the battery and grabbed hold quickly as he can. But in doing so, Asta could feel some pain shooting in his hand from what felt to him like cuts and scrapes. Some of them were even making his fingers slip off the cubic battery. Every poke and graze the sharp parts inside were giving his hand. As he continued to struggle for the zero-pointer's battery, Asta looks from the corner of his eye to see that the giant robot was getting closer and closer to Tsuyu, leaving Asta W time than normal to remove the battery. And because of the sharp objects guarding it, it made it impossible to pull it out without a single scratch on his hand. But with All Might's words of wisdom continuing to ring in his head, Asta growls loudly as he locks his stare back onto the battery with contracted irises. "Don't you dare think that these minor injuries in my hand will stop me." Despite all of the stinging strain he's going through right now, Asta persevered and grabbed onto the cube-shaped battery with all of his might. And with the help of his adrenal, the pain caused by the sharp objects inside the hole was left ignored as he dug his fingers deeper and deeper into the compartment that had the battery in it. If I'm going to become a great hero, quirk or no quirk, I need to push myself and surpass my limits. With a light tug, Asta prepares shut down this large foe villain for good time to go. With those words roared for everyone to hear, Asta violently yanks the battery out of the zero-pointer's head with some blood spurting and leaking from all over his hand because sharp objects that cut him during this action. And while he was doing all of this, a familiar glimmer of red appears from the iris of Asta's right eye before returning to green as soon as the battery was taken out. But that detail didn't go unnoticed by the black-haired man, who kept his watchful eyes on the screen that displayed Asta. And while he was stunned that Asta was able to tear battery and impressed with how he was able to get up there with his wall jump technique, it was that phenomenon in Asta's right eye that confirmed his suspicion about his con being quirkless. As for the rest of the audience, they were all left aghast by the feat Asta has pulled off. They did not think he could do it because of his condition, but against all odds, the Grey Boy did it. The only exceptions of the reaction were Nizu, who laughed in excitement at the sight, and the dark purple-haired woman, whose body was twitching in ecstasy. For her, there was something so elegant and youthful about Asta using his raw strength and adrenaline to force the cube-shaped battery out of the zero-pointer's head, and how shouts and bellows his resolve. And while she did her best to hide her strong elation from everyone, her blushing cheeks and her smirk that etched itself on her luscious lips remake their presence as she continued to stare at the gray-blonde boy clutching the battery in his bleeding hand. And of course, All Might grinned at the screen that displayed Asta, feeling just as proud of him as he is of his apprentice after witnessing what Izuku did to save someone from a pointer. That's right. It rises to the surface, the blonde hero thought as he watches the rest of the robot's eyes flicker and turn off, signaling that it has finally been disabled. The most important qualification of a hero is the spirit of self-sacrifice. He then takes a closer look at Asta's right hand and sees the blood trickling from the many cuts he's gained just after digging for the battery, with a few drops of the red liquid dripping onto the zero-pointer's head. And just like young Midoriya did, young Kurosaki, have also shown that spear back with the examinees. They could not believe their eyes. They have just witnessed a loud, explosive, hyperactive boy climb up a foe villain that's meant to be avoided and tee its battery with his bare hand without the use of a quirk. And for a select few students who've learned of this boy on the TV during the sludge villain incident, they were just as shocked as the rest of them because of the fact that he quirkless. Feeling the zero-pointer continue to lean backwards and fall, Asta jumps off so he wouldn't go down with it. And upon being in the air, he watches the giant robot fall over, further crash violently onto the ground with some more pieces of itself popping off and scattering all over the place. Ha! Rest in pieces, ya bucket of bolts. The gray blonde boy sighs a breath in relief, knowing that Tsuyu was now safe from being bulldozed by the zero-pointer. But that relief was short-lived, as he once again realizes that he was still in the air. And because of that, he began to scream as he starts to plummet towards the ground from a distance. I did not think this through a while. Asta continued shrieking while falling further and further. But before he could suffer the same fate as the zero-pointer, he felt something wrap around his torso. Looking down, he saw that it was something pink, and since his elbows were touching it too, it felt a little moist. Ha! What is that? Before he could question it further, Asta was pulled backwards and gently guided towards a safer part of the area. Once he was there, the pink thing that caught him carefully onto the ground, making him land on his butt in a 1-inch fall. Phew! Whatever that was, I'm grateful to whoever used it. Otherwise, I would have died. I'm glad I was able to help. After hearing a familiar rib bit after that sentence, Asta turns his head to the source and widens his eyes to see that he landed next to a familiar green-haired girl. Su-chan. That was you? Tsuyu nods while covering her ears with her fingers. It's part of my frog quirk. It allows me to do pretty much everything a frog can do: climb walls, hop at long distances because of my strong legs, swim faster and longer, and, just to cushion your fall, extend my tongue up to a maximum of 20 meters, which thankfully, you were closer than that range for me to grab onto you. Asta looks at Tsuyu in amusement after hearing how her quirk works. That explains why you croak like a frog every now and then. Tsuyu nods at Asta again as he said that, not taking offense as there was no tone in his voice that revealed that H weirded out. So, if you don't mind me asking, what's it like to be able to grab stuff with your tongue, since that's what you just did to save me? Well, I rarely use it for grabbing objects since it's mostly for grappling onto stuff and using it like a whip, but when I do have to put up with the taste of some objects, like leather, etc., Tsuyu answers before shrugging. But it's something I got used to as I trained my quirk for the exams. Asta nods in understanding before offering Tsuyu a smile. Well, thanks for saving me, Su-chan. I really do owe it to you. After expressing his gratitude, Asta gets up off the ground. Right, now to finally get your legs out of all that this is long overdue. Tsuyu watches Asta approach the rubble while putting a finger onto her lips. While I appreciate you wanting to free me, Asta-chan, how exactly are you going to do that with one of your hands being all bloody? Just as she asked him that, Asta places his hands on the top piece of the rubble with the intent of removing them one by one until it finally ended at the piece that kept Tsuyu stuck. But as he did so, his right hand twitches as he began to feel the pain from before return. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Asta shouts while clutching onto his right wrist with white eyes and tears streaming from his eyes like a waterfall. Ah, drat. I almost forgot that I had a hand to get this messed up just to turn that robot off. And that's a wrap, examinees. Time is up. Asta and Tsuyu look up with broadened eyes when they hear President Mike announce the end of the exams. After taking it in for a few seconds, starts chuckling to himself while 4 horizontal lines for each eye. Oh well, Asta says while scratching the back of his head with his uninjured hand. At least I was able to prevent the giant hunk of scrap metal from squashing ya, Su-chan. Sacrificing those last 2 minutes was worth it. Tsuyu was taken back by Asta's response to the end of the entrance exams. Did her ears deceive her? Did she just hear Asta not care about not scoring any more points after of the zero-pointer just to save her? But then again, Tsuyu shouldn't have been surprised. After all, he did decide to risk the chance of scoring more points by coming to her aid. He could have ran off with the others to his own skin and find more foe villains to destroy, but instead, he decided to prevent the zero-pointer from running her over. And as she thought about that even more, Tsuyu felt even more touched than before as she continued to stare at Asta with gratitude in her eyes. Asta-kun. Suddenly, Asta and Tsuyu whipped their heads towards where they heard a female voice call out to the gray-blonde boy, revealing Setsuna running over to him with the red-haired orange-haired girl, and purple-haired girl curious of him following. Asta takes one step back in surprise when Setsuna gets closer to him. Dude. That was freaking incredible, she says with astonishment all over her face. The way you climbed that zero-pointer like a titan, how you got it to destroy itself, how you able to shut it down, it's insane. She then grabs onto Asta's shoulders, catching both Asta and Tsuyu off guard as Setsuna then gives him a worrying gaze. As cool as that was, sure that it was worth it? You're not going to get any points for that. I'm fully aware of that, Asta tells Setsuna with a small smile. I just did what I thought was the right thing to do. Setsuna and the other students who heard him blink in surprise at the response. Asta was aware that he wouldn't get any points out of defeating the zero-pointer, but he did it in order to save Tsuyu. Having realized that, Setsuna grinned at Asta before giving his shoulder a pat. Dude. You really are an amazing guy. And what makes it more astounding is that you didn't even use your quirk. Just how the hell were you able to do that? With a determined look in his eyes, Asta gives Setsuna his answer. With a lot of hard work. Everyone was confused, but Asta continued. I was able to do what I can do because I never gave up and kept pushing forward. And as for taking it out without a quirk, well, that's because I don't have one. I'm diagnosed quirkless by the doctors. Upon that revelation, everyone's jaws dropped. That gray blonde boy in the entrance exams that did pretty good in them from what they saw in the corners of their eyes during session was quirkless? Such a feat sounded impossible to them. But after they witnessed Asta do what he did, they were starting to feel more impressed, especially the red high who was looking at him with beaming eyes. As for Tsuyu, it started to come back to her. That quirkless boy that was on TV during the sludge villain incident? That's who her little brother and sister were talking about. Setsuna was about to respond to Asta. But before she, Tsuyu, or any one of the three students could, they heard footsteps arriving towards them. Good work, everyone. Turning their heads towards the source, the examinees looked to see a short, elderly woman with gray hair and a netted bun, small eyes and nose, and a large syringe that she might be using as a walking cane as she approached the students. Mostly Asta, as the woman locked her stare onto him. Who might this be? Asta asks with a tilted head. That's the school nurse of UA, the youthful heroine, recovery girl, Tsuyu explains with a ribbit, having researched the hero school herself. She's considered to be the back of the school because of the incredible healing properties of her medical quirk. Asta hums at the information while the small old woman finally got close enough to him. My goodness, you've injured your hand really bad, didn't you? Recovery girl questions Asta, referring to the blood and cuts on his right hand. I swear, you youngsters are as the old days. And you, young man, are just as reckless as that other boy I just healed a while ago. Asta gives the school nurse a puzzling stare. But before he could respond, recovery girl puckers her lips and, much to everyone except Tsuyu's surprise as they watched, extend towards Asta's cheek in an unnatural way, arrange distance and kiss him. Asta remains frozen in place for a few more seconds before the nurse finally removes her lips from his cheek. As he rubbed his left hand there with bewilderment and a sweat, everyone else looks to see the cuts on Asta's hand repairing themselves at a decent pace. There you go, dearie. Your right hand should be okay now. My right hand? Asta lifts said hand over to himself to see what recovery girl was talking about. And upon looking at it, he saw that his hand was indeed healed with no scar, WHOAAH. Amazing! Asta exclaims with stars in his eyes as he flexes the fingers in his healed hand and performs some test punches with it. I mean, I've still got blood on it, but it looks like my hand never got injured. I can't even feel the pain anymore. I'm right here, Sonny. No need to be so noisy. Recovery girl shouts as she snatched his right arm to wipe off the blood with a medical wipe. Asta's cheeks turned red in slight embarrassment while scratching the back of his head with his free hand as recovery girl was finishing up the cleaning, earning mixed reactions of other 5 students, ranging from a cocked brow at Asta from the orange and purple-haired girls to expressions of admiration from the red-haired boy that noticed the muscular in the gray-blonde boy's arms. Setsuna was giggling into her hand at Asta's explosive personality, and Tsuyu just tilted her head at him. While he can still be pretty loud without him realizing it, he sure did Luan happy, a quality that she kinda liked in him as soon as she discovered it. Sorry, Asta apologizes to Recovery Girl with a sheepish smile. But thanks for healing my hand up, though. It's much appreciated. Of course, dear. Just try to be more careful next time. Now, hold out your hand. While doing as he's told, Asta watches Recovery Girl reach her hand into her nursecoat's pocket, pulling it out and guiding it above his palm. Here, have some gummies. Asta looks down at his hand to see that Recovery Girl has given him 5 gummy bears, with 2 of them being the same red flavor. Oh. Thank you very much, Recovery Girl. You're quite welcome, dear, the school nurse replies as she watches Asta eat one, resulting in him gaining stars in his eyes again as he learns that they taste like the Haribo the candy, the best type of gummy bears, in his opinion. Now then, anyone else need healing? The students surrounding him except for Tsuyu and Asta, the latter of whom continued enjoying his gummy bears. Froze a bit while staying quiet, unsure if they wanted Stretchy B what will patch them up from any mild injuries. But when Asta heard that question, he shot his head up and looked over to Tsuyu. Oh, that's right. Suchan still needs help. After devouring his last gummy bear, Asta goes over to the rubble that's still trapping Tsuyu's legs and climbs up to the top piece. Grabbing onto it, he lifts it up as if he's trying and sends it topping a few inches away from him in a direction where nobody will get hurt, and he took care of the other pieces from there. While he was doing so, Setsuna and the other students, except for the red-haired boy, finally took notice of how muscular Asta's arms are. And upon looking at them, they're eyed with contracted pupils as they watch him take care of the heavy pieces of a building with little problems. Whoa! Those biceps! Setsuna thought to herself with a tinge of pink in her cheeks as she continued to eye up Asta's arms. And even though his clothes covered them, she saw that he also has some great abs, quads, and glutes. Especially the glutes. Back with Asta, there was one last piece of rubble for him to take care of, the one that's preventing Tsuyu's legs from moving. And because of that, he was more careful with th piece of building as he slowly lifts it up high enough before looking towards the green-haired girl. Are you able to move your legs? Su-chan? With a rib bit, Tsuyu attempts to move her legs out of the way. And while she was able to do so, she could feel some mild pain from the action. Yeah. They still hurt, but nothing feels broken. You can put it down now. Getting the green light, Asta drops the piece of rubble back onto the ground and dusts his hands while turning back to Recovery Girl. If you can you use your quirk on her too, please? It's better to be safe than sorry. Recovery Girl gives Asta a nod in understanding and walks over to Tsuyu while taking a mental note on how caring the gray blonde boy is, as did Setsuna and the other 3 stayed the background. Instead of being weirded out like the others. Tsuyu kept her composure as she allowed Recovery Girl to use her quirk to heal any potential damage caused by the rubble. After the nurse did her work, Tsuyu was able to get back on her feet without any problems or any aches in her legs. Thank you, Recovery Girl, Tsuyu says while she's given 5 gummy bears before looking over to Asta with a smile. And I want to thank you as well, Asta-chan, for saving me 0-pointer. Asta smiles back at Tsuyu before giving her a thumbs up. No problem, Su-chan. I'm glad to help, he says before giving her a 2-fingered salute. Anyway, I better be off now. Wait. Asta-kun. Just as he was about to move, he stops to look over his shoulder when Setsuna speaks to him. Sorry, I'd love to stay and chat, but I gotta find my friend and see how he's holding up. After waving, Asta starts to sprint off. See you later. And I hope you get into UA, Setsuna gasps with a light blush when she heard him call her nickname. It didn't sound insulting, but rather friendly as he was still smiling at her and Tsuyu while making his W towards his friend. Second. After thinking about that nickname and repeating it in her head numerous times, her lips slowly curl up into a smile. Yeah. I like that. It's got a nice ring to tittering at that. She looks back over to where Asta used to be and develops a glint in her eyes. Asta-kun. You have to get into you. 1 hour later, Asta was now over at the Midoriya's place in the apartment complex for some lunch after the entrance exams. Earlier, he received a text from Izuku after Regain phoned from the locker that his mother wanted him over for a special treat, and he was more than happy to come over. Not only to try out what he believes to be Inko's amazing, but to also see how Izuku was holding up after the exams. While Inko made her son a mackerel cuisine that was based on the diet plan he told her about with rice, she made Asta a big high-protein beefsteak with a side of tater tots. Expected, her creations were delectable. And Inko could tell that Asta's enjoying it because of the stars in his eyes as he devoured the beef and tater tots like a pack of wolves. After giggling at the sight, she then looks over to her son to see how she's enjoying his meal. And upon seeing him, her eyes broadened a bit when she noticed that Izuku was Sta the fish with hollow white eyes and a wide smile, looking as if he was daydreaming. Izuku? Inko tried to call out to him, but he didn't respond. Sweetie, are you okay? Again, no answer. Izuku's eyes remained glued onto his mackerel with his smirk not changing. It was only until Asta gave him a gentle nudge in his left arm that got the green boy snap out of it and look over to him, seeing that it was him who got his attention. Your mother's speaking to you, bud. Blinking at the explanation in surprise, Izuku immediately looks over to his mother to see a concerned but slightly freaked out expression on her face. Why are you smiling at that fish? Should I be worried about you? Izuku gasps at Inko before shaking his head rapidly. Oh. Sorry, it's nothing, I'm fine. Izuku answers before taking a deep breath. I guess I must have been lost in thought. Just from seeing how Izuku shifted his eyes from his food to the side and how nervous he was, Asta was able to put the pieces together. Is it about the UA entrance exams, Izuku? The green-haired boy jumped in surprise at Asta and stares at him for a moment before sighing with a frown. Well, I guess you can say that. Inko and Asta watch Izuku look down at his food with an unsure expression on his face. And they both understood why to a degree. Hey, don't look so blue right now, bud, Asta tells him while placing a hand on his shoulder. We just got through with the exams, and it'll be a while before we figure out how Izuku looks over to Asta with his expression not changing. I know, but how do I put it? Oi, don't go thinking negative on me now, Izuku. Asta says. I'm sure whatever heroic deeds you pulled off at the exams, the observers haven't turned a blind eye to it. Izuku's eyes widen at his friend's words. Do you think so? Of course I do. How could they call it a hero school if they left it out of their sight? Izuku took some time to think about what Asta said. During his time in the entrance exams, he recalls not being able to score a single point in the physical portion. From self-esteem he knows that he passed the written exam just fine, but he'll bet it'll be cancelled out by the lack of destroyed full villains in his practical score. The only robot Izuku was able to destroy was the zero-pointer with the use of his acquired quirk, One for All, and that was because someone was in danger of being crushed by the injuries he sustained just by using All Might's lend power or something he has yet to tell his favorite hero about. But when Asta said what he said, it got Izuku wondering if there was more to this test than just destroying the full villains. He knew that it was a crucial part in scoring points. He knows that there's more to being a hero than defeating bad guys. He puzzled on the possibility that doing good deeds for other students can get him some points too. If that case, then maybe there's hope for him? Still unsure about it, Izuku decides to put it on the back burner and smiles slightly at Asta, not wanting him to worry about him right now. Well, when you put it like that, Asta, then I guess I've got nothing to worry about. Right? Inko smiled at the sight of her son and Asta continuing to speak with each other while moving on to different topics that aren't about the UA entrance exams. Every time the Jeep blonde boy would come over, she always enjoys his company because of his ability to look on the bright side of life and give Izuku some hope in becoming a hero. And while a part of her feels jealous that Asta can give her son some confidence despite everything Izuku had to go through before learning that he's a late bloomer, something Asta and Izuku agreed to go with to keep One for All a secret, she's very grateful to him that he could make the impossible fact on being a quirkless hero possible. And after seeing Asta's physique via his arms, she can bet that he can pull it off, especially after seeing him land some attacks on the sludge villain to save her son and Katsuki after the boys finished eating. Asta assisted the Midoriyas in putting away the dishes before bowing his head to Inko. Thanks again for inviting me over to lunch, Ms. Midoriya. Your cooking is as perfect as always. Inko giggles with Asta with a hand on her cheek. You're very welcome, Asta-kun. Any friend of my son's is a friend of mine. After grinning back, Asta felt his phone buzz in his pants pocket and saw that his father sent him a message requiring his assistance. Ms. Midoriya, I'm sorry if it's too soon, but I gotta get going. My pops needs some help with some laundry work. Don't worry, Asta-kun, Inko assures him. Do what you need to do for your father. I'm just glad you could be here. Thank you, Ms. Midoriya, Asta says before approaching the door and getting his shoes on. After resting his hand on the knob, he looks over to Izuku and gives him a thumbs. You worry one bit, bud. Be as patient as you can for the results and just think positive. Why, yeah. Izuku replies sheepishly before Asta took his leave. As he did, the green-haired boy walks over to a nearby couch and takes a seat before breathing a sigh. I couldn't everything about what happened at the exams. While Izuku pondered how brutal his score will be. Inko looks over to her son while using her object attraction quirk to get a photo book from the shelf. I know, sweetie, having to wait a week for the exam results will be very stressful. But no matter the results, I want you to know that I'm proud of you for having gotten as far did. Thanks. Widening her smile, Inko walks over to Izuku while opening the photo book, revealing pictures of a younger Izuku and Asta in the album, and lends it to Izuku, who lightly jump at it. You've got a perfect friend, Izuku, Inko adds as she watches her son go through the pictures. I'd say if it weren't for Asta-kun, I wouldn't have been filled with more hope for after I found out you were quirkless. Even after you found out that you're a late bloomer. As he scanned the album, Izuku looks to see the pictures revealing a younger him and Asta enjoying each other's company. One photo showed them watching the Adam Westby movie, and another revealed them dressed as the fictional dynamic duo for Halloween, Asta being Batman, and Izuku being Robin, the boy wonder. The next picture showed them playing Crash Bandicoot games together, and the other one, what stood out to Izuku the most as he smiles and chuckles at it, showed Asta doing ups with the green-haired boy sitting on his back and holding on tight with Asta looking up at him gleefully. Yeah. I really am blessed to have him move to our neighborhood. As am I, dear, Izuku's mother agrees. And if Asta-kun says to keep positive, then that's what I believe you should be doing. I sure will because you're a really sweet boy. Izuku nods at his mother before looking back at the picture of Asta doing push-ups. With every second he stared at it, his smile grows wider in that time. Whatever happens next week, I still appreciate what you've both done for me. Thank you, All Might and Asta. 1 week has passed. And during that time frame, Asta continued to train to get his body stronger and would speak with Izuku every day to check up on how he's doing. So far doing okay, but a part of Asta thinks that there was something he was kinda hiding that's related to the UA entrance exams. Tonight, Asta has just finished another session of training and is now watching reruns of Adam West's Batman. And every time it would go on a commercial break, he would play Squish Game Watch device to pass the time until the show would be back. Oh geez. Oh crap, the obstacles are getting faster. Asta shouts to himself as he guides his character out of harm's way as fast as he could. But just as he found a good spot, the character on the top screen of the Game Watch changed the direction of the maze's path, causing his player character to get squished by obstacle. Ah, man. Asta complains as that was his last life in the game. I was about to beat my high score. 2. He then sighs before closing his handheld game up and putting it in HOL. It was still fun. But then, just as he got comfortable, his legs start to tremble a bit as he felt something going on. And after feeling it out for a few more seconds, he shouts in realization with B for irises before springing off the couch and sprinting for the bathroom. Ga-ah-wah. I really have to pee. Oh, God, is all that water I drank while strengthening my body coming back for revenge? Ugh. It's close. Real close. The miniature WATE getting way too close. Asta finally finds the bathroom and quickly enters it to take care of the waterfall that threatened to detonate his bladder. From behind the door. He can be heard breathing the low sigh of relief ever as he remained in the restroom for 3 more minutes to relieve his bladder. After flushing and washing his hands, Asta exits the bathroom with a smile on his face and 4 horizontal lines for each eye while scratching the back of his head. Phew! Oh boy! That is so much better. Everything came out just fine, too. Bye-bye, waterfall Asta. The gray-blonde boy's eyes widen when he hears his stepfather call out to him. Turning his head left, he sees him running over to him with something in his left hand before Trip falling over, making Asta go over to him and kneel beside him. Pops, what is it? You sound like there's something up. Taking a couple of breaths, Leopold lifts the hand that carried the letter in it and brings it to his stepson. It's from UA. Your exam results are in, son. Gasping at the revelation, Asta helps his father back on his feet and immediately heads to the dining room table with him to have a look at how he performed. Having it placed on the table, Asta and Leopold stare down at the envelope from UA for a solid minute before shifting their eyes towards each other. Asta nods first, followed by his stepfather. After doing so, the gray-blonde boy walks over to it and opens the letter up. Putting it upside down, he cocks a brow up when he saw a metallic circular object fall and plop onto the table with the black part facing up. Before the Kurosakis could question what that's doing here, a mysterious light began to appear from the black part of the circular metal piece and forming some sort of screen on dining room wall. Is that? Leopold says. A projection? Asta finishes for him before the screen before them displays a dark purple-haired woman wearing a red domino mask and a hero costume that looked similar a traditional dominatrix, winking at the camera with a sultry pose and a flogger-style whip in her right hand. Hello, cootie. Midnight. Leopold exclaims before his nose erupts in blood, making him fall onto the floor back-first hard like a plank of wood. Pops. Asta shouts for his father to see that he was suddenly murmuring to himself on the floor with spiral eyes. Hoping he'll be alright, Asta looks back at the projection while ignoring how adult the woman's costume was, fully intent on knowing if he passed or not. I am the R-rated heroine, Midnight, one of the teachers at UA, and I'm here to show you your results of the UA entrance exam. Asta prepared himself for this as he watched Midnight swing her whip towards the TV screen to her right. For the written portion, you have passed with flying colors. As for the more physical portion, Midnight pauses to lick her lips with narrow eyes and a grin. This is where things exciting? Asta questions the R-rated heroine, even though it's a projection. A part of him thinks it's a hint that he passed that too, but he knew better than to get his hopes up so quickly and continued to listen. Okay, as you already knew, this portion of the exam has you defeating full villains in order to earn points. And on this scoring chart, you have destroyed 4 1-pointers, slot 2-pointers. And you've impressively, and youthfully, taken out 2 3-pointers. After running the calculations, this would make your total score tallied up to 22 V-points. Asta's eyes widened in shock. He knew he lost track of his score because of how focused he got at the robots kept coming, as well as his duel with the 0-pointer to save Sui did not expect to have scored this much. But nonetheless, Asta was proud of himself. He could be wrong, but he recalls that the minimum passing score for the exam was at least 20 points, and to learn that he's passed that limit by just 2 points left him satisfied. Now then, you may be wondering, why did I call them villain points specifically? Midnight asks, before tugging at the strings of her whip while wiggling her hips in excitement. Because, handsome, that's not your final score, eh? Asta was bewildered at that revelation. Yes, in order to score points in the exam, you do need to take care of those robots. However, it's not graded solely on villain points. Midnight swings her whip to the other side her irises contract in exhilaration. There are also points for people who do the right thing and risk their lives for others. We call them rescue points. Rescue points? Asta repeats with a tilted head. These points, in particular, are given by a panel of judges. Heroism, like helping others before they get into an accident, is the other basic ability we at UA look at. The more he rescue is, the more rescue points the judges give an examinee. Asta hums while nodding at that reveal, both intrigued and grateful that the school also acknowledged that rescuing the innocent was also what it takes to be a hero. But whether he already knew this information or not, he helped those fellow examinees because he wanted to and that it was the right thing to do. Right, let's take a look at your good deeds, shall we? Midnight says before cracking her whip at the screen next to her again, revealing footage of Asta helping the other exa. Here you are saving a girl from some rubble after taking out the faux villains that were about to take advantage of the situation. The judges decided on giving you 2 rescue that deed. Next, you rescued another girl from taking a rather big fall into a pit. For that action, the judges rewarded you 1 rescue point. Then, you saved 2 boys from being crushed by some destroyed bricks. That gives you another 2 rescue points. Since she paused for a moment, Asta tried to total up the rescue points Midnight displayed to him. But before he could do the math, he noticed that the R-rated heroine started even more ecstatic than before as she had her hands on her blushing cheeks. And lastly, Midnight began before her breathing started to get hot with a little bit of drool trickling from her bottom lip. My most favorite highlight yet. There is this incredible deed where you prevented a 0-pointer from running over another girl by making it destroy its own head and used its damaged state to rip out its battery like Kano from Mortal Kombat. Unable to contain it any longer, Midnight hugs herself while squealing in delight and twisting her head and body side to side. Yes. Yes. It was such a youthful display. The way you kept digging your hand into the open hole for the battery with that fierce look in your eye, all while screaming out the motto. Absolutely lovely and adorable. It turned me on so much. Asta tilts his head to the other side with a question mark above his head as he continued watching Midnight getting hyped up over his last heroic deed displayed on the screen. She's rather enthusiastic, isn't she? But then, Asta notices a hand of what appeared to him to be a runner of the recording giving a stop motion to the R-rated heroine as if to tell her to tone it down. Making her head towards him with white eyes and shark teeth. What? Will you keep your mind out of the gutter? I can't help but find the display to be so epic. So what if it's a tad bit biased of me to root for the boy? After telling the PE screen off, Midnight coughs into her fist and looks back at the camera. Anyway, after performing such a wonderful display, the judges loved it so much, they've all agreed to an additional 60 points. And if you add them all together, you get a grand total of 65 rescue points. Asta's jaw dropped at the math. He understood why the previous rescues got the points they did, but for him saving Tsuyu to earn him 60 to get the current amount of rescue, it was astonishing to him. Now then, for your final score. Midnight announces before swinging her whip upwards. If we take the 22 villain points you've earned from destroying those pesky Rob, add them together with your walloping rescue points, your score is a grand total of. Midnight was silent for a moment before swinging her whip forward so it was pointing at camera. 87 points. A crowning achievement, especially for someone like you. It was that moment when Asta's hands began to tremble with the most shocked face he's ever made so far. He passed. Despite his lack of a quirk, and using nothing but pure strength from his body, he was able to get into the UA Hero School. Asta was so happy. A small teardrop escaped his eye and rolled down his cheek without his surprised face changing. All of those years, people in his elementary school, and a rare few in junior high, including Katsuki, told him that being a quirkless hero was impossible. But the score the R-rate heroine revealed to him told him that he proved them wrong. He proved them all wrong. With more tears being produced, he grins to himself with his fists close to his chest. I did it. Asta whispers before wiping his tears away with his toothy smile intact. I did it. I knew I could do it without a quirk. Congratulations, Asta Kurosaki, Midnight says before giving him an alluring wink and a heartwarming smile. I look forward to seeing you, for this is your Hero Academia. After saying those last words, the projection displayed the scoreboard that showed the top 10 scores from other examinees. At the very top left corner, Asta saw his score and smirked proudly at it while not paying attention to the other scores. Asta. Ha? Asta zips his head left to see that his stepfather recovered from his nosebleed he got from seeing the R-rated heroine in the projection. Oh dear, I missed the entire recording. Leopold exclaims, mostly disappointed that he couldn't see his favorite heroine for a little longer. Well, how did you do, son? Did you pee? Asta smiles confidently and points a thumb behind him, revealing his score in the top left corner of the projection. With flying colors, Asta answers before winking. I'm in. Leopold looks over at Asta's score. As soon as he did, his eyes widened when he saw the numbers 22 and 65 adding together to make 87 points. And after the position, something Asta didn't pay attention to since he was more fixated on the score itself, the man's eyes produced tears while putting on the widest smile possible. Oh, Asta! Leopold shouts before trapping his son into a hug. I'm so proud of you. You're making history, son. You're making history. Asta chuckles with his stepfather as he hugged him back, being very happy that his dream of being a hero is going to come true. Oh, if only we didn't have dinner an hour ago. Leopold continues after releasing Asta to pat him on the head. I would have rewarded you with a very special treat for your accomplishment. Asta laughs with his father while scratching the back of his head. Ah, you don't have to do that. I'm just glad that I made it in. After Leopold gives him 2 more pats on the shoulder before leaving the room while humming a happy tune, Asta looks back at the projection to take one more look at his SCO, but as he did, the right corner of his eye caught the sight of his friend's name, Izuku Midoriya. Looking over there, he saw that he too has passed the exam with 60 points. What surprised him the most about his friend's score, it was all solely based on rescue points with no villain points in his score. And Asta couldn't be any more proud of his friend doing whatever he did to earn them than he is right now. See, I told you that there was nothing to worry about, Izuku, Asta says while staring at Izuku's name and score with soft eyes, especially after learning that UA also takes the deeds into attention. After nodding to himself, Asta reaches a hand over to the button of the metal piece that still projected the scores. While he was turning it off, Asta failed to notice a certain detail about the top 10 results of the exam. Asta was ranked number 1 in the scores because of his 87 points. And who was number 2 with 77 villain points and no rescue points? Katsuki Bakugo. Asta doesn't realize it yet since he never paid attention to other people's scores while turning the projector off. But Asta ranked above the explosion wielder by just 10 points. That's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this part. If you want more, like this video, hit that notification bell, and maybe even give a comment on your thoughts on the video. With that being said, I'll see you all in the next part.